Good day, hi and welcome. All right, a little late getting in here. I'm freaking long today. Did a lot of shoveling yesterday. That's why there was no video. Didn't see Marvin out there. Oh boy. So, shoveling yesterday. I was supposed to go get a little job done today, but I'll get it done tomorrow. Uh, but I'm almost done chapter 4 of my book. Rhoda, I was up till like 2 o'clock last night. I was already like dead tired from shoveling all day, but I got that done. And I'm almost done another book. I'm about there. I got something like 70, 80 pages left to go. And I'll be doing that one. Review on that one. So, okay. So, I guess another This Week in World Crazy. I'll stick with what's working. I don't know about you guys, but I already got my RCMP notice via email for the gun confiscation. Uh, they're giving us till I think the end of February or something like that, or the end of March. I'll have to read it again. Doesn't really matter. All the guns they've seen so far were basically guns from gun shops, right? So they're like, oh, we got 12,000 firearms. Yeah, these are just stores that you went into and took their stuff, right? And then didn't even compensate these people fully. You know what I mean? So like people paid money to put a product on a shelf, and the government comes in, takes it, and pays them what they think it's worth. There's even still a price tag on it. You know what I mean? Yeah, like it's so wrong. It's just so wrong. Like there's. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. Like we know they're not doing this to keep you safe. Like they're doing it for other reasons. This is a no brainer for Carney if he wants to actually win another election. Or keep the country stable is to not do these radical leftist hits that like again for most stuff he's not too bad, and we'll get into that. But once you start stealing people's property just cause for ideological reasons, like it's not for like there's no statistics. Yeah, the liberal statistics are doctored or whatever, but they're not based in fact. They're just based in we think and we believe. Uh, like think of the children. That kind of stuff, right? Our side has all the facts. All the pro gun people have the Here's what you're doing, right? You're taking guns from people who don't break the law whatsoever, and not going after the thugs and the criminals that are. Like, it's not going to make, like, even if you were all for this gun ban, like, because, oh, well, military style rifles or assault rifles, whatever buzzwords you want to throw at it, you believe that it's going to be a greater good. There's no greater good in it. Like there's no okay. Well, we got rid of all these firearms now. The murder rate's going to go down. Like it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, look, they've been banning firearms arbitrarily. Even under the conservatives, they did it. Again, the conservatives are not our friend. Like, I mean, the liberals are definitely not our friend, but the conservatives are. They pander to us, but they'll never. Like the best we got was Bill C-42 when they had 10 years to deal with the problem way back then. Yeah, so they did okay on the gun registry. But is the gun registry really gone? Did the RCMP actually really get rid of their records? Right? Uh, yeah, I don't know. Uh, and then a lot of people, oh, it's because of Quebec. It's because of Quebec. Well, no, like it's the same in every province. It's just the home office of the main anti-gun lobby is in Quebec. It's not Quebecers. Trust me, there's many people in Quebec opposing this. Uh, as there is, in all the other provinces. It's just, it's where it happens to be based, right? So, and that's a UN funded coalition. They used to call it the Coalition for Gun Control. Now they call it something slightly different, but it's still the same people like Jen Rathjen and stuff like that. She was a Polytechnic survivor, so you're just supposed to be like, oh well, you can't question this lady because she was a survivor of something tragic. Where if you just say, okay, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, but did you not, maybe you should consider that what you're doing is not going to have a single effect on anything. So once they get all the gun owners, you're going to find it more in the boomer population. That's like, well, you don't need a semi-automatic anyway, right? What they don't realize is this is what Justin Trudeau referred to as Australian style gun control. So first they take the semi-autos, then the pump actions, the lever actions, whatever, and it's going to be the same as Australia. They're not going to compensate us for it, right? So it'll be interesting to see what the non-compliance rate's going to be. I'm sure they're going to threaten us with everything. You won't be able to get your renew your PAL license if you don't bring it in. You won't be able to get a driver's license. You'll go to jail. Like how many people are they going to go after, right? And stuff like that. But once they do, like the optics on it is bad. It's bad for the centrists. Like, why are we going after these people who have done nothing wrong? Uh, on something that's not going to be effective anyway. You know what I mean? Like you can't even make a case for it. It's just we're banning this on you because we hate you. Like that. That's it. There's really no other. It's really no more. Mind you, from the government point of view, it's like, well, if we don't have an armed population, we're safer. Yeah. So what are they planning, right? Who knows? But anyway, I won't go too much on that because it is infuriating. There's always something hitting us, right? Like it's just here's more bad news, more bad news, more bad news, and it's designed, it's rage bait. It's designed to get you as mad and angry as possible. Like look what they're doing in the States, like just one side agitating the other. It's just a part of the chaos, right? Try not to get caught up in it. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. I don't know. If they're just going after the AR-15s first, or if they're going to be taking the handguns away. For me, it's I don't have an AR-15, but it's not. That's not the point. It's like I have handgun, but like I don't have an AR-15. But if once they get the AR-15s and all those, the semi-automatic carbines and whatever else they have banged on the list, then it's going to be the handguns, right? Or maybe they're doing it all in one shot. I don't know. We'll have to see exactly. I'll have to do a little bit more research, see exactly what tyranny they're bringing in and why. Like for the money that they are going to spend, that could be going towards policing and stuff like that. Again, there is, you have to understand, like the liberals don't want to solve crime because they any more than they want, typically want people out of poverty, right? Because they make money with that. They make a lot of money with that, and it's just it's sick, but it is what it is, right? So we'll see how it plays out. A lot of provinces are saying we're not going to do this. We're not going to comply because it's just so blatant that it's wrong, right? But again, we're in a polarized society where the other side, particularly the people on the left, don't care if it's right or wrong. It's they need to hurt you because that's what they do. And you see it both sides, but like the left is always on the attack all the time. There's no doubt about that. But anyway, yeah. So if Carney was smart, he would just say, okay, well, we're going to hold this off for now because it's so unpopular, and like there's pandering to your base, but then there's alienating the center, right? Even Daniel Smith was talking about, like, it's okay. There's some people that'll vote for you no matter what. There's some people that won't vote for you no matter what, and then there's all these people in the middle. And most politicians trying to aim for the middle, right? Because that's where the biggest population, voting population is. And if this becomes like an optics nightmare, once you have the RCMP shooting people to steal their property, the media can only spin that so many ways, right? You could get revolts. You're going to get revolts, right? So if he's smart, especially with how fragile our society is right now, if he wants to keep doing the things that he's doing that are good, like the business and all that, sure, go for that. We can debate that, but right now it's like I would just leave the hot button stuff alone. Like even Stephen Harper was smart enough not to touch the abortion issue. Like it just don't even talk about it. Like it's because it's it just turns into a can of worms right away. And the gun issue is the same thing. Carney would be smarter to let sleeping dogs lie, but we'll see what he does. Right, right now it seems like he's going full bore for it. So just to pander to his base. but it's like that much of his base. You know what I mean? Like most liberals are kind of indifferent. You know what I mean? It's like, well, doesn't matter one way or the other. Some liberals are in favor, and then you have a real radical fringe of progressives that are just against anything. Like it doesn't matter what it is. They oppose everything, right? They're a suicide cult. So so if they know it can hurt, if it's going to hurt people, they'll go along. So anyway, that's my rant for that. But in other news, in my neck of the woods, Premier Legault is stepping down. I don't have all the details on it, but I said, and again, this is not a reigning endorsement, just like you guys know how I work. It's like, okay, just judging them by the other premiers that we've had in Quebec, he's been the best one so far. That's not a reigning endorsement. It's just he's been the least. He's done the least amount of damage. Oh, but he brought in Bill C-21 and blah, blah. Yeah, I kind of support some of it. Bill C-91, I don't support. I don't support that one. But that is a typical Quebec leader where it's like they're going to bring in like 90% of the stuff. I don't know how they get fucking elected in the first place, but they get elected like the Bloc Québécois. They were like running the province for 23 years, and they're just fucking beating the shit out of us with stupidity the entire time. They bankrupt the province, right? Legault, not too bad. Couillard, he was super corrupt. Jean Charest, super corrupt. He was probably the most corrupt Liberal. I mean, he just robbed us blind. And then Paul Mulcair, well, he bankrupted us. And then Pauline Mavoie, well, she was fucking crazy. She only lasted about a year and a half, and then she got ousted. People just demanded a new election. And then we've had Couillard. So at best, the CAQ wins again, or maybe we get lucky and we get a natural conservative run. I don't know, because like provincially, like federally, the Conservatives did the biggest gain in Quebec they've ever done in their history, right? Well, under Pierre Poilievre. So I don't know if that's going to translate to the provincial, right? And I know the election. I'm not sure exactly when the election is, but it's fairly soon. So he's stepping down. So I don't know if it's going to be after the election or whatever. I'll have to follow up on that. But if the CAQ wins again, okay, new boss, same as the old boss. I can deal with that. But if we're going to get like one of these radical leftist separatist groups, then the whole country is going to be fucking up in the world again. I don't think the appetite for separation is above 23%. It's probably lower than that now. It's mainly like the old people that believed in the that stuff, right? The younger generation, they're just not into it. Like the Gen Z, they're yes, you got your hardcore separatists here, but like when I was young, like like you'd say maybe 1 in every 10 guys was a hardcore separatist, even if they were French. You know what I mean? Most of them, well, no, like bilingual's fine with me. And then you're hardcore, because they taught it to them in school, right? Demand your French. You know what I mean? And it was never put into check. But now it's just like the Gen Z. It's like, well, they all speak English. You know what I mean? Like it's like they speak French. Maybe they're they have their heritage. They have all that. And they're just like, no, it's not under threat. It's look, I can speak both languages. And that's about 54% of the population in Quebec is bilingual. So like like Quebec City, Trois Rivières, those places, yeah, they're all very very French, whatever. But like Montreal, that whole area is the Outaouais, like even in like Gatineau here, like it used to be predominantly French. Now it's like predominantly bilingual because most of those people started getting the government jobs, right? So if they separate, well, they lose the job. So what you get is where they used to vote Bloc Québécois, now they vote like NDP or something like that. Because they want to keep their jobs, right? So yeah, that's Quebec politics. But we'll see how that works. And I know what you're going to say, Reg. Did you not know Legault was an World Economic Forum guy? Yes, I know. They all are. You know what I mean? But the thing is that it still doesn't change the, if you were to compare them to the other, like, I don't like any of these people, like, I don't. But it's like, if you compare him to anybody else that's run the province, he's done the best. He's been the least damaging, right? Now, of course, if you ask your liberals, oh my God, he's a Nazi. So in other words, we're fine. It's stabilized, for the most part. Not that Quebec isn't without its fucking horrible problems, hospital shortages, and all stuff like that. Of course, it's Quebec. It's always been that way. It's always been mismanaged. So it's just he's done the best at he's the least mismanaged. So we'll see how that goes. Davos. Yes, the Davos crowd is back. Yes, I listened to Carney's speech. Before all the pundits get in, oh, it's this, it's that. You got to take things a little bit more direct from the source nowadays, rather than just going right to the conspiracy theorists, or the again. Yes, I just spent moments there bashing on the Liberal Party for the gun thing, sure, but that's because that's what they're doing, right? So listening to Carney and the tone, the demeanor, the word choice, you get like he's kind of a bit of a dull person and whatever. He speaks in a monotone, whatever. He's your typical banker, accountant, you know, personality, right? Like, there's nothing special there about the guy. But you can really see how he is taking the stage as a world leader, and it's nothing to do with the size of our economy or anything like that. But our economy is improving slowly, and again with everything crisis, whatever. But I mean, like I say, a doorknob would have been better than Justin Trudeau. So everybody's seeing this, that it's like we got the 10th largest economy, I think, in the world. So I guess we're basically you know uh, we're the one of the second fastest growing in the G7 or whatever, or G8 or whatever we're at now. But again, like I say, because the man on the street can't feel the benefits yet, that'll be another year, 2 years before you feel that, right? So he talks about like solidarity with you know Greenland and stuff like that, and basically half of his speech is like subliminally telling Trump to fuck off, in the politest Canadian way possible. What like, for example, his whole kind of metaphor with the sign in the window, and it's kind of ironic that he talks about like people going along with communism and stuff like that, and here he is going along with a gun grab, right? So, but anyway, yes, hypocrisy is not whatever. But anyway, but what he was basically alluding to was uh, the world is not going to follow the United States anymore. It's partnerships are not, like, it's basically what he's been saying all along. Like the United States, if they don't want to lead, well, maybe we will. You know what I mean? And people say, well, Canada can't do this, Canada can't do that. They're nothing. And again, the way the word middle power has been thrown around, we've never seen that really thrown around like we have before, because pretty much every superpower, with the exception of a few, and if having a nuclear bomb is what makes you a superpower, I think it takes a little bit more than just that. But we'll go with that's part of the club, right? So if you don't have a nuclear bomb, you're not a superpower. So even though North Korea's economy is nothing compared to Canada's, I mean, North Korea is a superpower and we're not, right? So you get the idea. But we're a middle power, right? And we're seeing this coalition of middle powers saying, look, Russia's being a bastard, the United States being a bastard, China's being a bastard, right? So if we just keep following what they want to do, and we're going to keep getting bullied around is what he's getting at. So uh, the way around it is, we work together because out of many comes one, right? So, and his speech was okay. His speech was okay, and I get it. World Economic Forum, Davos, that whole thing. Yeah, I hate them all. Send the asteroid. They're all in one place. Get them now. You'd solve a lot of world problems if you did. Send the asteroid. You know what I mean? But it is what it is, right? So looking at it for what it is, Carney's kind of the guy on the world stage that's taking the lead here, right? And for the West, not Trump. Trump is. I mean, I listened to Lutnick speaking or whatever, and I hate the man. Don't get me wrong, I fucking hate the man. Some of the stuff he was saying, okay, we can empathize, we understand what what you want, but typical Lutnick fashion, he's also out to lunch on a lot of stuff. Sitting there saying how great everything is. I'm like, what fucking planet is he on? You know what I mean? I'm looking at the same data he's looking at, and again, lie, 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 lie. That's all these people could fucking do. It's so easy to verify that they're lying. No, the American economy is in the fucking tank. It's silver's nearly $100. We're almost at 5,000. Remember my prediction of $5,400 to $8,500 gold? Yeah, I might have to put it up to like 20 grand or so, 15 to 20 grand by the end of the year. We're almost past what I thought we'd be at near year's end. We're almost, like we're at what, 4,700? Yeah, your economy's great when we're at $4,700 an ounce of gold. I don't fucking think so. No, it's bad. It's bad everywhere. It's bad here. If it's bad here in Canada, it's definitely bad in the States. Because we're not doing all the crazy stuff that they're doing, but yet we have all the same problems they have because we're run by the same people everywhere, right? But this week, of course, Greenland is the big thing in the news, right? But the World Economic Forum, the Davos stuff, the people are going to dissect it. New World Order stuff. There's nothing new there that way. Like it's the same jackassery that we're always used to. But where there is something new is again the way people are approaching Canada. They're approaching us with kind of like we're the shining beacon on the hill now. The torch is ours. The Americans don't want it anymore. The thing is that most of the American people, whether they're for or against Trump is not the issue here, are completely blindsided by the fact, because most Americans do not pay attention outside their own circle, right? They American news, American people, American news. That's it, right? And the rest of the world is kind of the same. We usually know more about America because they're so dominant. We tend to know more about America than anybody else because it's just everything. The world kind of technically revolves around them because they're so dominant, right? But that's changed. The language has changed. People are talking about, the Arctic 8, which is like what I call like the Arctic resistance or whatever that we're seeing. That's now a thing. It's not, oh, they're talking. Like Carney is, getting a lot of, this is one thing you can like about him or not like about him, is yes, he backpedals on some things, but he's also, he said it very clearly. I'm going to do what I can get done now. Like if some stuff, okay, we can't get it done right away, okay, well, I'll put it on the back burner. That's why I'm hoping that's what will happen with the gun thing. Just put it on, okay, this is going to turn into a fucking disaster when we have to start sending people, rounding them up. It's going to create protests. It's going to create bad optics. Maybe we should just tackle it at a later date. Or he's just going to say, fuck it, let's get them. It's the best way to, maybe we can get some right wingers killed, in the confiscation process. You know what I mean? But that also could trigger something. I doubt it because I have no faith in law enforcement or military. They're all cowards. They will never protect the people. They just protect their jobs and whatever. But there are a few that will. And maybe we're starting to see the chink in the armor and we're starting to see some cracks. And I'll talk about that with an American general that's kind of telling Trump to fuck off over Greenland in a diplomatic way as possible, right? So maybe we get some RCMP and whatever. I doubt we'd ever get a revolt with them saying, okay, yeah, we're not going to hurt the people. We're not going to steal their stuff because it's whatever. No, they get, like if the law enforcement military say, look, this is an unjust law. It's not what we want. We want you to give us the powers to go after the real criminals. If they could do that and like stand up for the citizenry for once, but they won't because they're cowards. We saw what they did in 2020. Oh, we're just doing my job. That's what they always. That's and they're going to do the same for the gun thing. But oh well, we side with you. Well, then if you side with us, if you're going to stand by us, stand by us. If you're not going to stand by us, fuck off. Yeah, don't tell us how. Oh yeah, well I don't want to do this. I hate it when I see a cop like in somebody's door. Oh, I'm here because of a hate speech thing, and I don't really want to be doing this and that. Well, then just don't fucking do it. Well, I'll lose my job. Well, fuck you. You're a tyrant. Go fuck yourself. I'm not gonna feel bad for you. Like you're fucking wrecking people's lives. Why would I feel bad for you? Go to hell. Do the right thing or go to hell. You know what I mean? And yeah, I digress. That's about my rant for the day. Well, one of many rants, I'm sure. But there's also you know, um, like I said, you're probably going to have a military coup in the United States at some point, maybe most likely by this year. Trump is probably going to get assassinated by year's end, or sometime. It could be it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be the next day. I'm not calling for it. I'm just saying I don't see how it doesn't happen. Just looking at all the indicators, right? And it's most likely going to come from active, veteran military that probably voted for him. It's probably going to be a MAGA veteran that kills Trump, most likely. Why? Because of the betrayal, right? Like Davos is really kind of hinting at how the United States has betrayed everybody, and they're not a trust. Like that is probably the front and center. Is America a trustworthy partner? Right now, everybody's saying no, no, you can't trust the Americans for anything because they're like they're comparing them to Putin, all the stuff, right? And there's all the people that support Trump, like, no, no, it's 5D chess. He's going after the globalists. They're scared now. No, that's not what's happening. It's not what's happening. That's why I don't like the partisan channels that much because they give you this cheerleader kind of look at things, and they don't like and it's always some sensationalism. Oh, that's it for this person. They're in trouble now because my guy's doing this, right? And it's like, no, it doesn't quite work like that. Oh, they're scared now, or it's like the next news stuff or whatever, Dr. Stephen Tooley type stuff, like where it's just this like retarded fucking cheerleading for like, oh my guy's so good, so good. When it's like he's sticking it to the globalists when Trump is like globalist number one. It's just you have to understand them like mob bosses fighting. They're all in on it. It's just at a different level. Carney follows different mob bosses than Trump, but at the end of the day, they all work for the same banking institution, right? So whether Trump panders to Goldman Sachs and surrounds him with Goldman Sachs guys, Lutnick, or formerly like Carney formerly worked for Goldman Sachs. Yeah, like you're getting the same guy. You know what I mean? You're getting the same guy. It's just they all want to be their brand of brand of tyrant, right? They want to be the one calling the shots. Mob bosses fighting. So the thing about Trump, though, is he's threatening the Western world, and I really don't think I know. I held this thought for a while too, that if the United States steps out of NATO, which I'm all for that. Like, I mean, I don't think Canada should be in NATO. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I don't mind beefing up NORAD, and if NORAD's not going to be viable in the near future because of Trump, well, how about the Arctic 8 starts building the alliance to protect the Arctic with Canada, Finland, Denmark, all that, Sweden, I think Norway's in there, Finland, all these countries that, we're all, I think, I don't know if the UK's in on it. I think anyway, it's 8 nations right now that are like in the Arctic Circle and whatever, or near the Arctic Circle, that are like joining up as a super PAC. So it's kind of like a sub NATO, if you want to call it. Now, like the Americans are convinced that if they get out of NATO, that's it for NATO. I'm not so sure about that at the moment. It does because it seems like, okay, well, if you step down, it won't be as grandiose. I mean, yeah, there's no doubt about that because yes, the United States is the biggest contributor to NATO. That there's no question about that. But and you might lose, say, like Turkey, but like Turkey probably wouldn't want to get out of NATO because it's not that they would ever like Turkey will never come and defend you know a European country or something like that with Article 5. They won't do it. But they like, yeah, no, of course we're going to join because we can get all kinds of sweet deals out of it, and it's a bargaining chip for us. Again, that's what Erdogan does. Is he threatens the alliance, and then he gets what he wants. He threatens a migrant. Like Erdogan is one of those world leaders that just he's perfectly positioned to fuck everybody over all the time, and he knows it, right? So he wields a lot of power. He's a scary man. He wields a lot of power, and he knows how to use people. Like again, Turkey, as they say, Turkey dances with everybody, but is liked by nobody, right? Like geopolitically, and that's true, right? Well, the United States, if they step out of NATO, okay, uh, it doesn't mean the rest of the countries will just disband. Uh, I do believe that it'd be better off if we have the Arctic Eight, and we like people in the Arctic focus on that, like Canada and Finland and all that, and Sweden and all this, Norway, whatever, UK. That alone is enough to take on the Russians in the Arctic. Right? That alone, with the Arctic Eight, like if the Arctic Eight is starting its, going to be protecting Greenland, the United States can't take the Arctic Eight. They can't. They'd lose. It'd be damaging for all, but we'd probably take the biggest hits here in Canada, just because we're basically bordered at the United States. But make no mistake, the United States would have a hard enough time fighting Canada in the Arctic, let alone Canada and Finland. You put Canada and Finland and Denmark in the Arctic, the Americans can't. They'll never be in the Arctic again. So, oh well, no, we've got this and we're so powerful. It doesn't work like that. It's the Arctic, man. It's like the Arctic is one of the most difficult places to defend. Once you're hunkered in, it's really hard. Now add in 8 nations. The United States can take maybe one nation, but at a time, but it can't take 8. It just can't. The military, number one, is not big enough. The logistics of fighting on multiple fronts. You know what I mean? Germany found this out in World War II. You know what I mean? And you'd say, yeah, but that was then. This is now. The technology is a lot different. Yes, but going with the comparability, right? Like again, I hear this all the time from like Americans. Oh, the Canadian military sucks. They're whatever. But it's like you do realize, okay, yes, we might not have as much equipment as you guys. We might not have as big of a military, but we're pretty much trained the same, and we do have weapons that are basically your weapons. You know what I mean? Like we share similar weapons. A Mark 48 torpedo is a Mark 48 torpedo. Period. Torpedo 2000 is torpedo 2000. Period. An AIM 120 is an AIM 120. You know what I mean? Okay, there's multiple variants, whatever. Maybe the Americans have a slightly more latest view, but it doesn't mean the previous variation doesn't work. You know what I mean? An F-18 against a CF-18 is pretty much the same. If anything, I think the F-18 is a little bit handicapped to the CF-18 because we beefed ours up a bit to do a bit more because we, rather than having 10 different types of aircraft, we have one, right? Even if we don't have a lot of them, it's more about the defensive posture and getting around that. So our biggest weak point is air defense, but everything else, like artillery, like stuff like that, mobile artillery, anti-tank weapons. Like, I mean, we got tons of that stuff. It might be a little bit older, but if it works, it works, right? And it's more like you could have like a 1960s TOW missile, right? If it's effectively fired, it doesn't really matter if it's a state-of-the-art brand new one or whatever. Like those little AX missiles. Yeah, we might not have the many of them anymore, but like those things can be reloaded and fired multiple times. Okay, they're wire guided, whatever, so you can't jam them. You know what I mean? They might be a little bit shorter range, but again, if you're in an ambush, you know what I mean? Like it's not gonna, you know what I mean? Like it's not gonna matter. Like it's And our newer anti-tank weapons and shoulder-fired weapons like MADPADs and stuff like. Again, they'll shoot down like your Stingers will shoot down the same thing our Stingers will shoot down, right? So again, going to war with the United States is being seriously considered right now. It's just it's slowly coming out. Like the Greenland, like they're basically the Danes are out there saying, look, we're going to shoot first and ask questions later. Don't push it, right? Of course, Trump is going to push this. He's going to create an international incident. But the thing is it's the people that are on the side. Okay, so you got the Nordic 8, plus you can add in Germany and France, which France is a superpower, and the UK, they're a superpower. These are nuclear superpowers. So, like, are we going to be like basically? Never mind NATO. It's like like is World War III going to be basically the Russians fighting the Ukrainians and the United States fighting like the UK, France, like the UK and France and Germany, them teamed up. The Americans can't take them at all. Like there's no fucking way. Like, again, even if the technology's slightly behind, it's like there's no way you're taking. They're too advanced, right? Like most Americans don't understand that the most advanced military you've ever fought was the Iraqis, right? Now the Iranians are way ahead of the Iraqis by like quantum leaps, right? They're like somewhere below China and somewhere probably more equivalent to, but about I think the Iranians are way more advanced than North Korea. They just might not have the same weaponry, but the thing is that when the United States goes to war with Iran, right? And the Iranians say, okay, well, the gloves are now off. We're not just going to do these calculated little strikes. We're just going to go blitzkrieg on you. That's it for Israel, number one. They'll never be able to counter it. Send 2,000 rockets, 10,000 rockets in one night. Goodbye, Israel, right? Good riddance, too. Fuck them. Everybody's sick of them. But, yeah, like the aircraft carriers. Now, they're saying that there's reports that whenever the U.S. did the attack on on Venezuela, that they used some sort of electronic warfare thing and made like some sort of like pulse radar or whatever they used, and it made people sick, right? It made people sick. They used it to basically disrupt the signals of the air defenses and stuff like that. Now, that take it with a grain of salt because I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, it's a super weapon that just, okay, the weaponry itself, I believe, exists, but I don't think it could be wielded like that. Maybe in small doses, extremely targeted, but like, like a broad area where they could just like, basically use these, like I forget what they're called, but they're like basically like a sound cannon type of thing, and it makes people sick, right? Like it'll make you ill. And okay, well, extreme radiation from radar will do that to you, right? So electronic warfare devices can probably do this, but I really don't think that's what it was. I really don't think that's. Like it's hard to verify that. I don't think the U.S. has that kind of weaponry that to deploy on the mass. I know they're playing around with stuff like that, but you got to think about okay, like a warship. Using electronic warfare is inland is going to have its limitations as well. Satellites, the F-35s, the F-18 Growlers, yeah, they're going to be being able to deploy that, but it's it's selective, right? It's not just this big blanket, whatever. Now, mind you, it could, like, again, microwave radiation can do a lot of things. Maybe that's what people were getting microwaved by these radars. That's probably why they probably felt a little bit ill. So I don't think it was like the direct cannon or whatever, but just, like overwhelming electronic warfare targeted in directly. That's probably what it is. Now you say that, then oh my God, the Americans have a super weapon, and there's no way to counter against it. I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, you might be able to stop a couple of missiles coming into a carrier group, but you fire 100 carrier missiles into a carrier group, even if they could debilitate all the missiles with electronic warfare, which a lot of times they can. Cruise missiles and stuff like that, they can blind them. They can, fry out electronics if it's not well shielded, whatever. But a modern anti-shipping missile coming in at Mach gazillion, no, there's no defense against that. Anything over Mach 2 starts becoming real difficult real fast. And even at that, you fight. The ship only has so much ammo and missiles to use as a counter, right? So it's a numbers game. If there's 150 Pack 3 missiles in there, okay, fine, then send 151, cruise missiles or whatever. And again, they'll overwhelm the ships with drones first. Why? Because they're cheap. These little 70. Can you imagine you spend like $2 million of drones and you take out a carrier group? Like, you know what I mean? Like and again, just okay, send 100 drones per ship. They have to shoot them down, and even if they can like jam the signals, you can use more ballistic, you know, think like V2 rocket, World War II V2 rocket kind of refined, right? Where it's like okay, it's on a a collision course. Once it locks in, it just follows its way down. Doesn't matter what kind of electronic warfare you use against it. There's nothing really to fry out. It's just gyros mechanically going in. Or if you have some sort of a wire guided from shore missile, you can't jam the wire guided stuff. It just guides right in, right? Mind you, it'd be long, but like the tether lines are there. You can get like 10-kilometer tether lines. Like it's we don't know what's going to be deployed, right? But that said, just plain old artillery, from a choke point. That stuff you can't. There's no stopping that stuff, right? So the thing is that the United States, okay, fighting Saddam, no problem because yeah, sure, you had a 2 million man army or a 1 million man army, but they all got like maybe 2 weeks training. It's like here's your AK, bullets come out that way. Don't shoot yourself in the foot, right? And like they didn't have fuel for half their tanks. Stuff like that. So of course, like they were the most advanced at the time, right? Um, but Iran is actually not the same because the Iranians actually have the training. You know what I mean? Like those protests are pretty much, I think, all but done there now. There might still be some people protesting, but it's pretty much done. So again, color revolutions don't work in Iran. Um, I'm sure they killed lots of Mossad agents on this round as well. So the United States, like they might have some better weaponry, but the Iranians are going to be the most advanced that they've ever fought. Okay, once they go to war with them. Now that said, uh, between Iran and one of the Nordic 8 countries, us included, we're probably way, way, way more advanced than they are, right? And we're set up differently, but we're way more advanced. So the United States wouldn't be able to, do a naval blockade of Greenland if there's other groups there. Like there is warships there, and yes, these warships are outgunned, but it doesn't mean they can't get lucky. You know what I mean? And these warships can be used more for coordination of cruise missiles and stuff like that than actual direct fire, right? So this idea that okay, well, we set up a carrier group, that's it, game over, Greenland's ours. We don't even have to fire a shot. That no, the only thing that decides whether the Americans have to fire a shot or not is the resolve of the Greenlandic people. Now, Greenland itself does not have a military, and this is something Trump goes on about the dog sleds and stuff. Number one, he doesn't understand. Like again, the dog sleds are not a fucking defensive force; they're a reconnaissance force. It's a handful of dog sleds, and why are they using dog sleds? Because there's no fucking roads up there. That's why they're using dog sleds. So Trump again, like out of context. No, you dog sleds can usually go where even snowmobiles can't, right? Like the Greenlandic people who fucking understand how to live in the Arctic, Again, it's like you laugh at them, but you know who's going to be bringing the mortar shells to the mortar teams? Guys on dog sleds. You know what I mean? Um, why? Because the Humvee's stuck in the fucking ice. You know what I mean? Like in the snow. The snowmobile sunk. Up to the fucking handlebars in fucking snow. You know what I mean? That's again. You got like again. This it would be very very bad for the Americans. I think in the Arctic because of their lack of understanding. I mean, the Americans that train in the Arctic obviously understand. Okay, no. That's not how you fight in the Arctic. Like you can't just roll tanks and stuff like that. You know, like the reason why Russia has 50 bases or whatever, 48 or 50 bases in the Arctic is because that's where they're going to fight from. Like like it's a staging ground. That's it. You're not going to be tactically moving all over the place because you can't. You simply can't. Even in the summertime, like again, trying to get from point A to point B without ripping up your tires or tracks or whatever you got on your vehicle is like like four wheelers up north. Like they go through tires like crazy because of all that fucking jagged rocks and everything like that. The tundra is just completely unforgiving. I mean, it wears out your boots, let alone tires and stuff. And try to take a tracked vehicle over that without throwing your track. Good luck. So there is ways to do it, but like it is a lot of maintenance to do that stuff. But no, you start getting anti-shipping missile systems, which yes, the Finns have, yes, the Danes have. They have little trucks come out, and they can fire 4 Harpoon missiles at you. So naval blockade versus missile truck sitting guided by another warship. Like again, it would be, I mean, yeah, sure, the Danes only have 3 warships protecting, but coordinating with a land force, this, oh no, well, we'll jam everything. Are you so sure about that? You know what I mean? Like it's, then start bringing in Swedish submarines, Finnish submarines, Canadian submarines. Yeah, you'll have American submarines there too. But again, it's one of those things where it's everybody's going to know where everybody is, sure, but that's also a problem because if you start getting up into like right around the strait there's a lot of choke points. It's the last place you want to be putting carrier groups. Like if you put a carrier group, okay, to block off the Russians, okay, you got to put a carrier group here, okay, and in between here, okay, here, it's well, sorry. So you got to put a carrier group here, okay, and in between here, okay. So all this here is hard to defend, but here, choke point here, no one's getting in and out. Here it's a little harder, but missile systems here, like anything going through here is dead. Anything going through there is dead. Now the Americans have bases here, and then there's some up here, but they mainly use the one down here. Right? But that said, Canada, we got alert up here, right? So we have a base here, so we've got that covered. You bring these guys over, they can either come up, well, I guess they'd be going kind of like straight across-ish, not straight across because of the ice, but they'd be going there. And that's the other thing too, the ice, right? This is when Trump there's Russian and Chinese ships all over the place up there. There isn't. It's bullshit. Especially this time of year, like nobody's moving around up there at all this time because of the ice, right? So the rest of the world is like, okay, well, what are we going to do when the United States does decide to it's just Trump is like he's not bolstering, like he's not doing a 4D chess plan. He's gone insane. He's literally gone insane. Like if it was a 4D chess plan, okay, well, he's just getting people to go up there and start pulling their fair share or whatever. It's not that. No, he really does want Greenland. Why? Because it's not new. president after president has tried to acquire it, right? He wants to be the guy because he's got really no wins right now. His term has been just absolutely horrible, but it's all his decisions and the people around him that have created all this chaos in the States and the bad economy and everything like that. So what he's looking at is like, well, if I can acquire the largest island in the world, well, I don't know about that. Because Australia technically, I think, is bigger. I remember the map's not the scale. Greenland is like about the size of Iceland in scale. You know, like the map's not the scale. Like I never knew that until I do want to get a proper world map where it's okay. Here it is to scale. It's just everything's a lot smaller than you think. The only thing to scale is Africa. That's it. Everything else is small. Russia is about maybe about a tenth the size you see. Canada's about a tenth the size you see. Same with the States. And Greenland is like, you know, way smaller. I don't know why they did that. I guess just because it's easier to read the map or whatever. But anyway, the point is that no, the United States just going against Finland Denmark. Okay, Denmark doesn't have as much stuff, but they do have missile systems, anti-shipping system missiles, anti-aircraft. They do have this stuff, right? They've got a handful of F-35s or whatever, and a handful of F-16s. Well, yeah, there could be a problem there because Raytheon can just shut off the F-35s, right? But as soon as they do that, that's it. You'll never sell another American weapon again, right? Which would be devastating to the U.S. economy because the Americans have a death and debt-based economy, right? They have the military industrial complex is a huge part of the U.S. economy, and without it, yeah, there goes the U.S. economy, right? So they have to go to war all the time. Max Kaiser called it the death and debt-based economy back in 2010 and 2009, 2010. He was 100% right. Basically, you take their petrodollar or they drop democracy JDAMs on you. But with Greenland, remember, guys, I've been bashing on law enforcement, military for being cowards, pretty much everywhere, going against their people, right? But remember, I said there was one naval commander or whatever that stood down rather than follow Trump's, illegal orders over the Venezuelan thing. Well, it does appear that one of the generals that's in Denmark, it's an American general. I can't pronounce the guy's name, so I'm not going to bother. He came out and basically, this is, like I said, this is the beginning of your military coup. This is the loyalty test. This is the litmus test, right? Saying that, no, we stand with Denmark. NATO's NATO. We protect everybody in NATO, and that's it. And he's basically diplomatically telling Trump to fuck off, is what he's doing, right? Kind of like, no, we're not doing this. We're not just, the commander-in-chief said, I got to attack my own ally. You know what I mean? And I still do find it bizarre when I read comments of Americans going, oh my God, Canada fucking betrayed us. Look at that. They're moving closer to China. And I'm like, well, how can you not understand how that happened? You know what I mean? Yeah, you're going to bully everybody, chase them away, and then you're like, oh, they betrayed us for not, they throw us under the bus, the first sign of trouble. Well, again, just think of it the other way around. Like if Canada was telling the United States, we don't need anything from you, we don't want you, you're a parasite to us, we pay for everything, which is not true. Like what Trump is saying is not true. Again, the $200 billion that Trump keeps going on about, okay, exactly where are you paying for that? Well, we're paying for your military. No, you're not. We're paying for that. 70 cents to 80 cents of every Canadian dollar spent on our military goes to the United States. It's not the other way around. I don't know why people still believe this. This man lies. It's like, no, we buy our stuff from you. You know what I mean? That's not. So when we bought and paid for it, that's not you paying for us. It's us buying it from you. Like, is the man fucking retarded or what? Right? Like, but people just believe him, right? Because it's like, oh no, he's fighting the deep state. No, he's not. He's part of it. Like there is no world leader out there fighting the deep state. It's all openly admitted. Like it's easy to verify. There are no good guys. It's just mob bosses fighting. But that said, At least you got two guys in the entire U.S. military and Navy that are doing the right thing. Two guys, okay? And the good news is these guys are in higher positions of power. Maybe they can have some influence there. But that's also the beginning cracks on your way to a military coup, just so you know. Why? It starts with one outspoken judge or general. Then you get, a couple more, then commanders, and then suddenly you get a stand down somewhere. And that's what we need. That's what we need. We need to wrangle the system is so corrupt. The judges, the lawyers, the chiefs of police, the mayors, all these corrupt people need to be held to account. So that's what's going on in Greenland. Yes, the Canadian military is starting to plan. You know, you know, um, they're coming up with a war plan to defend against the United States. This is loosely being openly admitted. So behind closed doors, I'm sure they're saying, okay, well, how are we going to mobilize against the Americans? And you'd say, well, that's never happened. It's happening. It's in play. You know what I mean? The Americans that keep dismissing what Trump's saying, and there's a lot of Canadians that do, there's never going to be an attack. It's just all bluster. At some point, like when somebody tells you who they are, you got to just take their word. You know what I mean? And even if it is wrong, and I hope it is, maybe it's like, okay, something happens and Trump comes out. Sorry, I had to do that to you. It was the only way I could get you to do this. Please forgive me. Blah blah blah. But now we're good. Now we're good. Like now the world is safe. Okay. Until I see that, okay, I'm going with no. The Americans are about to attack us. And I think like again, the thing about Trump is one thing about Trump. Yes, he lies all the time. There's no doubt about that. But he's got that neocon Zionist gene that makes him blurt everything out. We're going to do this to you. We're going to, because he can't contain his ego, right? He has to tell you that he's using super weapons. He has to tell you that this and that, whether it's true or not. But he has to bolster. He can't keep it to himself. And again, the breach of trust. Once again, like for example, Macron. I'm no fan of Macron. But when you make Macron look like the reasonable guy, again, fuck you for doing that because the guy's a fucking cretin. But when you make Macron look like a decent leader on the world stage, which he's not, but you know what I mean? Look, Trump fucked with our election, and that's why we have Carney in power, right? Now, mind you, would Pierre be much better? I really don't know. I really don't know because the direction Carney's taking us in, it's not so much about him right now. It's about the next guy. Like if Carney's going to set us up, like I think Pierre would cave into Trump a lot more, right? Which would just prolong the pain of Canada becoming, developing its industries. Like right now, we're starting to develop our industries. Yes, it takes a decade. It takes 30 years to turn that tide, but it has to be done. Like the conservative people in Canada are constantly going on about, well, why isn't Carney making a deal? Because he knows there's no deal to be made with Trump. It's a waste of time. Trump does not want to make a deal. The rest of the world has figured this out following Carney's lead. It's like, no, we got to deal with each other because we're just going to cut the Americans out because giving them the leverage over the entire world economy like that is the worst fucking thing we've ever done, right? No, it's not going to destroy globalism. That's not why it's being done. If anything, it's going to double down on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is what they're discussing now. You know what I mean? Again, let's go by what's happening, not by what we think is happening, right? And the thing is it's verifiable. It's verifiable. You might not like what I'm saying, but it's verifiable. No, the United States is being cut out of the world. It's going to be isolated. They're not going to get the 90 deals in 90 days. Mind you, that time has passed. Anyway, Carney is doing the 90 deals in 90 days out of desperation, trying to outrun the collapse of the United States economy. And we are now no longer, can I say, Carney's getting like accidental wins in the fuck Trump economy, where everybody just, we're just going to boycott the United States because Trump's an asshole. Yes, that's still going on. We're getting those accidental wins. But there's also been solid action of transactions and business deals. Now, one thing Carney has done is lowered the ideological business framework of I'm not doing like Justin Trudeau. We're not going to do business with these guys because of human rights and blah blah blah. Where Carney's like, well, we got to kind of meet people where they're at, so we're going to do business with Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and China and what all that. The biggest issue is China, with checks and balances. Well, again, it's not what he says, it's what he does. Is he going to really keep the Chinese at bay on certain things, such as the Arctic? You know what I mean? Or is he going to just say, okay, well, no, we're going to just use foreign investment, i.e. China, to develop the Arctic, which would be bad, right? If he does that, then he betrays us all, sure. But no, moving closer to China in certain ways is from a bit like a one trip. Like this has got to be the part that really pisses Trump off the most. Is Carney just landed a $1 trillion fucking deal? It doesn't matter over how many years. It doesn't matter if it's going to be 10 years before we see the fruits and labors of it. It's just Carney got a deal that Trump could never get, right? And on top of that, he's making all these other deals with all these other countries, right? And we're beefing up on everything. We're going to be getting new helicopters now. Right, I understand it's stimulus. I understand that. We're going to be getting, replacing our Chinooks and, Griffins, right? Because, I mean, the Chinooks, we have like 14 of them. We had 8 of them, and then I don't know if it was under the Harper government. It was like, oh, okay, well, we're done in Afghanistan. We'll get rid of those and give them to the Danes, right? Or give them to the Netherlands. And we did that, and then it's like, oh fuck, we need more. Or no, it was, or maybe it was Kretzy. Whoever did it anyway. It's like, oh, we don't need these heavy lift helicopters anymore. Whatever. Kind of like with Kretzy with our tanks, right? Oh, we don't need tanks anymore; they're obsolete. He can make an argument for it now, but back then he couldn't, right? And then, fuck, we had to go buy 14 more. It's like, fuck. But no, we're going to be getting new helicopters. Like again, the Royal Canadian Military in 10 years is going to be completely different than what we're seeing now. Nobody's going to fuck with us then, especially once we get the new submarines, whichever one we get. Again, procurement is, I think we need to start looking at stopgap, especially if we're going to be going to war with the United States. Again, I know a lot of people don't like me saying that, Reg. We're not going to go to war. We're already at war. Currency war, trade war, shooting war. And Trump's language is we're taking, again, how could any American not look at the rhetoric and still say it's 4D chess? When, Trump comes out and says, look, we're going to give, Greenlanders 56,000 people or whatever it is, between 50 and 60,000 people in Greenland. We're going to give them each $10 million to buy out the island, right? But yet you got homeless Americans, you got people can't afford health coverage and whatever. They're going to give them all this money just to take over this island, right? Which, even if you did take over the island, yes, the value of the island is insurmountable. Nobody disagrees with it, right? But there's a big thing that Trump won't tell you is that to get to these minerals, the reason why Greenland and the Arctic in general is it's the same with the gas and the oil. It's very difficult to get that. Most of the minerals are 600 feet below the permafrost, right? And the snow and all that. They're under a fucking mile of ice. You know what I mean? So even if you did get that, it could be a decade, 2 decades before you could ever see the benefits of that. So even China up there, yeah, sure, they've got some deals with, for mining or whatever with Greenland. So do we. So do the Americans. The Americans have already been told, yeah, sure, go ahead. If you can get to it, get to it. You know what I mean? So everything Trump is complaining about, they already have access to. This is what people, once you start digging into it, it doesn't make any sense. Oh, we got to put the Golden Dome up there. Well, the Greenlanders already told you, yeah, sure, I'm sure you got to iron out the details or whatever. But you already got access to it. The Greenlanders were already okay. Their statement is still this: we're still willing to do partnership and stuff like that. So exactly what has Greenland said? Told on that you have to invade them, right? There's so when Trump says we're either going to get the island, buy it out, and we're going to use coercion. such as giving people 10 million bucks, which has triggered the EU's anti coercion laws, which is going to be a counter to the Trump tariffs going into Europe, right? Which is going to hurt Americans. It's going to hurt Americans. So Trump then says, you're either going to give it to us or else, or you could do it the easy way or the hard way, right? And then he comes out and he says, well, if I can't get the peace prize, then there's no point in me not being a tyrant or something stupid like that. Anyway, so it's just at what point, like the agitation, what's it all for? You know what I mean? Like, Canadian Prepper has a theory that it's like, okay, there's going to be no invasion of Greenland, blah, blah, blah. What it is it's just posturing for, a way to get weapons up there without the Russians, make it look like an invasion, but it's not an invasion. It's actually just militarization of the Arctic, right? Which I disagree, and because, again, if I was the Americans, okay, the Russians, they're not watching, like, they're watching this probably shaking their heads like, what the fuck is going on, right? They've got problems. But the thing is that the Arctic Dome thing, okay, whatever it's going to be, Ronald Reagan called it the Star Wars program, the technology now is something else. Us in Canada, we're going to have the over-horizon radar systems, which can see submarines under the ice. If these radars work as good as advertised, put them in alert, we'll be looking right into Russia's back door, from the ground. Like from the ground, the way the beam the frequency goes up, hits the ionosphere, bounces back down, and it can detect magnetic. It can detect like the thing is really how the fucking Australians came up with this idea. It's like it's fucking brilliant if it works as good as advertised. Now we get a bunch of those strung across the Canadian Arctic. The U.S. Navy fleet and submarines, and the Russian fleet, the Northern Fleet and their submarines we're going to know where they are at all the time. At that point, you decide cruise missile torpedoes will become, or drone torpedo dropping will become the thing. I was like, oh, why send out a sub when we can just send out a torpedo, a drone with a F-21 torpedo, just drop it right through the ice. You know what I mean? Like have some sort of mechanism that blasts a hole in the ice, and then you drop the, like maybe you land it, you drill a hole, and you're just like, okay, the sub's coming. Just drop it on. Yeah, it's like these, like for example, the Swedes have these little like speedboats and stuff like that, and they've got these sea mines. It's basically they've had these since World War II, probably even World War One, where it's like a little mortar that goes out and it sinks down, and it basically it's like a deck charge, right? But you have the ones that the Swedes have now, and I can imagine everybody has them. We have them. Everybody has them. Is you fire it out and it goes into the water, it sinks down, but it's magnetically activated. So if there's a submarine hull, it'll go to the submarine hull and blast a circular hole about that big into the submarine hull, right? It's a deck charge. It's basically like an active deck charge. It's a seek and destroy deck charge. You could drop stuff like that. You know what I mean? For pennies on the dollar, you could take out a U.S. submarine, you could take out a Russian submarine. You know what I mean? Might make submarines like drone warfare and the weaponry stuff. Like it's making stuff like anti-tank weapons. It's making all this big heavy stuff. Like Trump wants to build the battleship. Like yeah, fucking talk about a fucking. Could you make a bigger target? You know what I mean? Like warships are obsolete, guys. They are. They are. Well, not completely, but how their role is going to be, it's all, like I say, warships 1,000 miles from each other is too close. So, Trump making all these threats, the rest of the world is responding, and they're organizing, particularly Denmark. And they keep telling and warning on live TV that we will defend our island no matter what. And it's not that, and again, you got all these Americans that, we'll take the island in 3 days. If Danish forces are on the island, you will lose hundreds of people. You might win the island, but how many Americans are you willing to lose to steal property from somebody else? That's what it like. It's not for the national security thing, because if it was, you've already got that. You've already got access to the base. You've already got access. Again, the Danes are more than happy to have you build more bases up there. Um, but the Danes look, we got patrol ships up there. We're not seeing all these Chinese ships and Russian ships that are the Americans are talking about, because they're 1,000 fucking miles away. You know what I mean? Like people don't realize the scale length here. Okay, again, I know not everything is to scale, but like here's Greenland, here's Russia. Like it's a long way to go. Like if Russian would be about here, like that's a long way to go for a ship. It's almost unnavigable. Like there's parts of the polar cap, like it never thaws out. The ice is like miles thick. You know what I mean? So there's just natural barriers there, right? Like when I hear people talk about how the Arctic's melting. Okay, you have to understand. Okay, the Arctic might be about 4 degrees cooler, but it's still fucking -70 up there. You know what I mean? Like it just means you might be able to get into the Arctic about a week earlier in the spring. Maybe you get into it late May instead of middle of June, right? So again, this is what the whole climate change thing drives me nuts about. It's like it's not the big thing that people make it out to be. It's just Mother Nature doing her thing. It has nothing to do with CO2 and stuff like that. Even the methane in the Arctic is not the issue that they make it out to be. It's an issue. Don't get me wrong. It's an issue, but it's not the issue they make it. We get one temper tantrum from Mother Nature, and the whole planet's going to be covered in ice. like it's whatever. Like we don't hold a candle to that, right? And again, how does the Americans keep? Like you can't, to take Greenland. Like, sure, you could take the citizens that are unarmed and whatever, a bunch of Eskimos up there, no problem. But again, you put Finnish forces, Danish forces in there, Swedish forces. Like, these countries are adapted perfectly to the Arctic. They understand that, okay, yeah, your warships might be up there between, say, June and August. You know what I mean? But you keep a carrier group up there past August. The Americans only have 2 functioning icebreakers that could do the job out of the 5, right? We have 19. The Finns have, I think, 3 or 4. Sweden has, I forget what Sweden has. But anyway, like Canada has the second amount of, again, this is what drives me, about Trump drives me nuts. Erie is going on about how Canada, getting our icebreakers. Number one, it's a joint partnership that goes back to the fucking 90s. This is not Trump deciding to make icebreakers. This is a deal that's been long in the making, way overdue. Canada has the second amount of, largest amount of icebreakers. 19 to the Russians, about 40, right? The biggest icebreaker in the world, I think, is the Peter the Great, the one with the big shark. It's the coolest looking icebreaker. I love fucking icebreakers. I think they're so cool. I'd love to go on one. I just smashing the shit on the Louisiana Rod, smashing the shit out of the ice. That's what I think the world should be doing, is stuff like that. Real exploration stuff, right? But it's the anti-shipping missiles, and like again, this idea that the Air Force is going to win land. No, you have to put boots on the ground. Now, the Americans can't put boots on the ground, and Danish forces are going back and forth. Yes, it's a handful at a time, but again, everyone going, oh well, they only brought this many people, 10, 15 from France and about 20 or 30 from Denmark or whatever. Yeah, but there's only 150 American soldiers there. You know what I mean? Like that's like at the moment. They say, yeah, but we could put like 25,000 guys there. Yeah, but you have to understand, mobilized, the Arctic 8 could probably put 100,000 guys there, right? And the difference is when you get around between 12 and 20,000, so about 20,000 Americans is about the max of the Arctic capacity that the Americans can deploy in the Arctic successfully. Anything more than that is just people dying of frostbite. How do you keep people alive at -40? I don't know. You know what I mean? However, the Arctic 8 at current moment can, Finland, Canada, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, not including the UK yet, just out of 12,000 guys, perfectly adapted and prepared to fight in the Arctic. Now, Canada holds probably the most equipment that's adapted for the Arctic. The Americans have probably the least Arctic adapted equipment. So most, and this is what drives me nuts about Trump, is like he's going on about how we need to beef up the Arctic, but half the stuff you're using in the Arctic is Canadian. You know what I mean? Like, again, look into something for more than 5 minutes, right? We can our tanks will work in the Arctic. The Americans have, like, I think three Abrams that are adapted. 3 to 12 Abrams that are adapted for the Arctic, right? And again, that's only going to work on the base. It's not going to be going all over the place. Arctic vehicles, we have there's snow coach type things. We have way more than that. The Russians have that fucking really nailed down, where their snow coaches have fucking air defense systems and mortar systems and everything you can possibly imagine, right? The Swedes probably have the most, next to the Russians, and then probably the Finns, and then us in some of these mobile things. But for equipment that works in the Arctic, Canada's probably the top. It is what it is. It's like, and I know people don't like if you want to fight in the desert, the Americans. You know what I mean? You want to fight in the jungle, the Americans, right? Or probably the Chinese, I would think. I probably think the Chinese are probably better adapted for that, just because almost everywhere in their hemispheres pretty much jungle, right? So, all these, jungle islands. So the Americans are adapted to fight like in certain areas. Like Russia obviously dominates the Arctic in polar equipment. There's no doubt about that. And the thing is that to mobilize, yes, you can send 20,000 men up to the Arctic in 5 minutes. Sure. Now, how are you going to feed them? Right? And this is what people don't understand when I hear we'll take a country in 3 days type of thing, right? I was listening to a Navy SEALs guy talking about Venezuela. He goes, no, that was a Ranger, whatever he was. He goes, that was definitely a special extraction operation. He goes, that there, it's what they train for. It's very limited. They're going after a very specific thing, whatever, and just avoiding, like, for example, obviously the Venezuelan coup is very obviously there was a stand down to allow Maduro to get out of there. Again, maybe Maduro was in on it himself. We'll never know. Like, if you were about to betray your country and give away its resources, you'd want to make it look good, right? Although Maduro's wife did get a black eye somehow, so maybe she's got a rifle butt to the face or something. Who knows? But anyway, that doesn't matter. There was help, inside help, because again, this idea that it was such a flawless. That's too good to be true. Oh, look at our forces. We didn't take a single loss, right? Now let's say they tried it again, but this time around the Venezuelans are like, no, we're ready for you this time. At that point, could the Growler take out an air defense system? Jam it properly? I think you're going to see a Vietnam situation where you had the A6 intruders and whatever, where they could jam and confuse with electronic warfare to a degree, but they often got shot down just because you can't cover everything. It all depends on the training of the SAM, the SAM operators, right? But that said, I can guarantee you that the NATO guys, of the Arctic 8, if Trump were to make a move in the Arctic, they're going to know how to, the Finns are going to know how to, or the Danes are going to know how to shoot down F-35s. Why? They know the weak points. Why? They have them. Now, they probably have an export model, I'm sure. But even at that, if the British are in on it, well, you know what's going to happen to these Danish F-35s? Well, the software is coming out of that, and you're going to get BAE systems in there. Meaning the British, when they got their F-35s, okay, And the same with the Israelis. These are the only two countries that got F-35s that did this. Israel went with Leonardo systems instead of Raytheon, and the British used their own BAE systems just because it made sense. So all the avionics and stuff like that in the British F-35s, all the software is theirs, meaning Raytheon can't turn them off. So what happens if a bunch of British F-35s get swapped out for a bunch of Danish F-35s? Now you've got a real problem, right? Now you've got a real problem. Again, how are you going to keep that carrier fleet up in the Arctic for more than a couple of months, right? How are you going to supply all those people with food if you've got, coming in from the other island, airdrops of weaponry and shit like that, particularly mortars? Like the Americans get slaughtered up there. They might win, but I don't think it's as easy as whoever has the bigger force is going to win. It's really the strategy. So you got a bunch of guys that Donald Trump is laughing about moving around on dog sleds, but these dog sleds can go pretty much anywhere. Drop off mortars, drop off anti-tank weapons, whatever. They can't move heavy artillery but you're not going to need heavy artillery to take out a U.S. base there. Mortars will do it. Oh, well, we'll send out the gunship helicopters. That's what Stinger missiles are for. We'll send out the F-35s. That's what Taurus missile systems are for. You know what I mean? Like there's a counter. Again, it's like, and then, like you got to understand, like finding that stuff on the ground, if you got a really well-trained crew, and then start adding in all the other, again, the Americans are going to be spread so thin. Like it's like, okay, you're going to bring all 12 remaining carrier groups to the Arctic, and then then what are you going to do in the South China Sea? All that stuff, right? So there's 70 subs that the Americans have, 68, 70 subs, something like that, right? So Canada has 4. Okay, so you outnumber us. Okay, Sweden has about 4 or 5. Germany has about 6. Okay, you see, France, they probably got I don't know how many they have functioning, but they've got a brand new sub that probably can counter anything on the planet. It's a beautiful sub called the Suffren class or the Barracuda. That thing fires 10 torpedoes at a time. It's 16 Exocet missiles and fire. This thing is just fucking. When it showed up in Halifax Harbor in solidarity against Trump, it's like it was nice to see that thing, and that thing can function in the Arctic because we've allowed the French to test them there. So you got that thing as their flagship, okay? Deadly quiet, more modern than a Virginia class, as a hunter-killer going up there. Goodbye carrier group, just with that one alone. You know what I mean? I'm going with the retarded scenario that every carrier group is up there. One carrier group is not going to survive 4 Canadian submarines, 4 Swedish submarines. I don't know how many the Danes have. The Danes, I don't think have any submarines there, but like Norway, I think they might have 1 or 2. Especially if they're starting to get those new Gothic class submarines, the A-26s online. If Sweden gets those A-26s online, goodbye carrier group. The current subs have already, again, you got a Swedish sub that is almost, these things have already been, at the RIMPAC exercises have already been shown to, get hits on modern U.S. aircraft carrier groups. This is an older sub, but it's so damn quiet. These diesel electrics are just terrifyingly quiet, right? And if it's sitting under the ice, it's hard to detect magnetically, right? Now, that said, you bring in the UK with their nuclear subs, like their Vanguard and the Astute or whatever. Yeah, they're plagued with problems, but I'm sure they can get them to, last long enough to take out a carrier group, right? So suddenly, the Arctic is not going to be about an offensive, but a defensive. Because, you sink a carrier group up there. You know what I mean? How are you going to keep the fuel up there? Just keeping the aircraft, the F-35s in the air up there. You're going to have tankers flying 24/7. billions and billions and billions of dollars to do this invasion. So suddenly, once you start planning out the logistics of this, you realize that this isn't like if you're going in and out of there in one day, sure, the Americans can do it. If you're there for a week, you're talking probably $100 billion minimum just to do that. Keep one carrier group up there, right? On the taxpayers' dime, right? To keep the F-35s and bombers flying up there, maybe you got B-1 Lancers or whatever, to take out like little Eskimo huts or whatever, okay, whatever, right? But if there's air defense systems coming up, you know what I mean? Like it'll get to the point where, you know, as soon as you lose a tanker, suddenly you've got all these aircraft. If they can't land on the aircraft carrier, like say you got F-16s up there, and the air bases are taken over by the Danish forces, which, you know, they'll probably hit that, you know, like if the Danes go with a U.S.-style preemptive strike paranoia, they could run the Americans. They probably do it peacefully first. Say, no, you guys just go home. Donald Trump say, fuck you, make me. And then they do the fuck you, make me part. So the Danes get the jump on the Americans out of there. You know, you bring in 1,500 Danes and you say, look, you're surrounded. There's 1,500 of us. We've cut your communications. Just surrender. Go on the plane. Go home. Don't die. You know what I mean? Or the Americans put up a fight and they die. Whatever. They'll die quickly. You know, the bases will be destroyed, right? So at that point, like I say, the strategy could be in favor of the Danes like you wouldn't believe. You know, like the idea that the U.S. military is completely invincible. You know, sure, they would win a prolonged war, but you got to think of what it takes just to keep the war going up there. Like, there's a reason why, like the Russians, the only thing that's coming over the Arctic from the Russians is missiles or bombers. That's it. Why? Because like, you know, this idea of like invading the Arctic, like you could take territory on there, but you can't go into, like, you can't come into Canada via the Arctic. You'd die. You know, like you'd never get. It'd take 6 months just to get a vehicle halfway down, right, to the Boreal tree line, and by the time you get to there, then you got to cut your way through the Boreal tree line. Good fucking luck. You know, it'd take you 10 years to get through that with a fucking brigade tank. You'd lose everything. You'd lose everything. You know, this is what I'm getting at. Is like it'll be a senseless war if the Americans decide to do this, right? But we see people are already planning on how to defend against the Americans in the Arctic, right? This is something that we'll have to watch Arctic Command. You know, the Americans, not from the Alaskan side, but from the European side, they're probably already, you know, and again, you got to factor in one major thing. If you've got one U.S. general out there saying, no, NATO's NATO, and we're going to protect NATO, and that's it, right? And you have that guy there. What information has he given the Danes, you know, to say, look, if they attack you, hit here, 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 and here, you'll win. You know what I mean? You got to factor that in. Me, it's just torpedoes, man. Torpedoes, torpedoes, torpedoes. You got a drone boat with 2 Mark 48s strapped to it. Look, the Ukrainians and the Russians, you know, like those fucking little drone boats are hard to fucking stop. You'll never stop the torpedoes. You'll never stop. Again, it would be a humiliating defeat, you know, for the Americans to see a carrier group go to the bottom in the Arctic, and there'd be no way to rescue any of the survivors. They'd freeze to death. Middle of July, they'd freeze to death, right? Yeah, like again, like you could get as many men on the base, but how do you keep the food coming in? You know, like good luck getting transport aircraft coming in without getting shot down, because they're not going to get shot down over Greenland. No. Here's the USA. Okay, you're at war, so you can't use Canadian airspace anymore. And if you do, you're going to get shot down here, right? You got to come out here, you got to go here, and you got to get to here, right? Well, something's going to get you from here. You lose a heavy transport there. What you call it? You know, like a surveillance plane, a tanker. It's going to make things harder to keep here. So you got all here that you got to watch out for. Yeah, you got everything on this side you got to watch out for, and then all this stuff is going to move into here. You're going to have ships shooting aircrafts down. You know, I'm not saying that they won't take loss. Like I say, you might win Greenland, but at what cost? What, 100,000 people, 200,000 people? You know what I mean? Like it's again, Trump is And this is what the Canadian military and the Danish military are talking about right now. Like, how are we going to defend from the Americans, right? Okay, what assets would they deploy to come and get us? And I don't think it's going to be as obvious as people think. It's not just, well, okay, put out the carrier group. Well, the carrier group, again, if you see a carrier group going up in June, right, it's going to be up there max 2 months. If not, it's going to be frozen in the ice, because there's no way for the Americans to keep a carrier group moving in the ice, other than two icebreakers. So you want to take out the Americans, okay? If they're dumb enough to stay up there during past August, you don't have to take out the warships. You just have to take out the fucking America's two icebreakers. You take out the two icebreakers, doesn't matter where they are. They're not with that carrier group before the end of August. The carrier group, the Danes could take out the U.S. Navy without firing a shot. The ice will do it for them, right? And you'd say, yeah, but we could get supplies to the ships and stuff like that. Yeah, until you get a winter storm, and then you start running low on diesel. Okay, the nuclear ships, sure, they're fine, but they're still going to run low on food, and then they're stuck in the ice. Okay, you send out 200 drones. They shoot down all the drones. Okay, some of them are, then you fire rockets and mortars, right? You got to shoot that down. Good luck. Good fucking luck. You know what I mean? Like, just good luck. The U.S. military would not be able to protect a carrier group up in the yard. How do you know this? This is why the Russians have everything on missiles on the fucking, on the bases. It's like, okay, yeah, like, yeah, they do go in certain parts of the Arctic with warships and stuff like that, to a degree, but you're limited. You can't just go where you want. And the submarines under this, yeah, they get a little bit more of a, they can stay under their, under the ice for the whole winter. But they still have same problems there too. I mean, whether the Russians cut the communication lines to Europe and whatever, or the Russians do it, it doesn't really matter, because you can get, like, it just, everything gets diverted through satellites and whatever, right? But no, the more I think about it, no, it would be light over might, I think, would work. Again, you get a couple of guys on an iceberg, sitting there with some mortars or whatever, or sitting on a rock, like one of these little islands or whatever, coastal defense, again, one of those little rocket trucks. Like, you get them coming in or you get them going out. You know what I mean? Like, basically, Houthi tactics in the Arctic would destroy the U.S. Navy. There's again, you just got to think about it. Like, if people are in it to win it, right? Like, they're choke points. Yes, that is a large body of water. There's no doubt about that. But to be effective, you can say, yeah, well, they can fire cruise missiles. Yeah, but what are you really going to hit in Greenland? You know what I mean? Like, like, if the residents are told to evacuate, okay, there's tons of places that they probably know of to go. That it won't matter if the U.S. levels every house there. Like, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to really win anything. Really comes down to militaries fighting militaries. That's how you win. And none of it needs to happen, right? But yet, we've got basically 8 countries, the Nordic 8, basically, countries now deciding on how we're going to defend against the United States. Like, they're already coming up with a war plan against the United States. And if Americans aren't taking this seriously, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can't defeat 8 modern militaries. If the United States goes to war with Canada, that will be the most advanced military you've ever fought. And you'll find out that, even if you could win, it would cost you probably about 200 million people. And the more I war game it, the more because of the tactics that would be deployed, right? And you have to understand, like, there's a civilian population that would be mobilized as well, not basically by the military, but just by like Civil War style, right? It's like, okay, well, yeah, the military, they can take on this, they can take that, but we could take out the trains, we could take out the water treatment system, we could blow up all the gas pipelines. It'll be on both sides of the border, sure, but like for example, the wildfires, these are set by people. Look at how damage those things do. It's not climate change, it's people. Law enforcement after law enforcement will say, yeah, we keep catching all these fucking arsonists. But the media is like, oh no, it's climate change. You know what I mean? It's like that's all these arsonists, right? You're already seeing the saboteur wars starting again because of what happened in Venezuela, probably, and other things. You're seeing all these. Suddenly, you're seeing trains derail again, and factories blowing up. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah. Do you really think Lockheed Martin's going to be able to stay in business during a Canadian-American war? No. It's like target number one. You think North Fork is going to be a profitable to park your warships in that harbor? I don't fucking think so. You're going to get a Mark 48 up yours or a Mark 54, and say, oh well, we don't have that many of them. It's the raids, it's the missions, right? It's the starvation that will kill most Americans. Why? Because just look at the Ukraine. Like, what would happen between Canada and the United States, or what's going to happen, is going to be horrific. Like, yeah, we'll lose probably 3/4 of our population in the battle ourselves. There's no doubt about that. But if we have the Nordics helping us on top of that, and NATO, what ends up happening is the Americans will wear most of their troops out, pushing maybe as far into about as here, because this is where most of Canada is. And most of the Americans are going to die around here, around the Great Lakes, because this is where the battle's most likely. It's going to either start here or up around the Northwest Passage. But even at that, like it's almost impossible. There's nobody can really stage up there. Like if you want to go through the Northwest Passage through Canadian territory during a war, by the second, third year of the war, this is all you'd be slaughtered. Remember, there's a lot of shoals up there too, right? A lot of people don't understand. Like, there's like real deep parts of the Arctic, but there's a lot of shoals, right? You can't just come in land. Like, there's not a lot of ports up there for a reason, because it's all shoals, right? You got to factor that in. But what ends up happening is Canada will take at least this much of Alaska, if not all of it. Then you might even see some Russian. Well, while they're at it, we'll take the peninsula. And then what ends up happening with the saboteur groups like that, maybe Mexico jumps in and they start to take all of this and half California. We probably are going to control all this. And I know what you're saying. Oh, our military's big, we'll hold you up, blah, blah. But what'll happen is you guys are going to get slaughtered here, and if you're in Greenland, well, you're going to lose. Like a 1 million man force sounds like a lot until it's not, right? Russia, Ukraine, what, they've lost 1 million men each? Probably. We'll never know. So the United States will not only lose the war, especially if there's 8 other countries. So first off, we've got a full naval blockade here and up here. Because remember, it's not just submarines. The United States has about 240 warships and 70 submarines, right? And out of that, 12 of them are carriers. Once you start sinking the carriers, that will debilitate, America's ability. And that can be done by air cruise missiles, anti-shipping missiles. Like, again, it's a numbers game, right? And you can say, yeah, but it goes the other way too. Absolutely. But depending on, let's say the Canadian Navy takes its 12 frigates and fucks off and hides somewhere around the world where you just can't find them. That's been known to happen, and we sit and we wait. Okay, let's see. Let the cruise missiles and the air power and the drones take out the U.S. Navy. Then we do our counter naval blockade. Or maybe it's just head to head. 12 Canadian frigates, 3 Danish corvettes, 3 or 4 or 5 Swedish and Norwegian corvettes. All the subs, everything, and it's just mano a mano, right? Fucking battle of the fucking Arctic, battle of the Atlantic, right? And let's say the U.S. Navy sinks everything, okay? But you've lost 8 carriers and 150 warships in the fucking process, and 62 submarines. You know what I mean? Sure, you wiped out our Navy, but now your Navy's like just barely holding on by a thread. And then it's a matter of aircraft just taking you out, you got an Aurora CP-140 hooked up with 16 to 24 Harpoon missiles, okay? Times 3, and then all the other ones, okay? You know what I mean? If that thing gets through, you're going to lose the rest of the warships very, 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 very quickly. Look, one Sea Penguin, I believe it was a Sea Penguin, sunk the Moskva. Okay, there is no U.S. warship the size of the Moskva other than a U.S. aircraft carrier. You know what I mean? That's one fucking ship. It took 5 or 8 hours for the ship to sink, but one Sea Penguin, like one little Sea Penguin. That's like fucking 70s technology, 80s technology, right? Oh yeah, but that technology will never get to us. Will never get to us. Look, the United States has already lost like an F-18 or two just from trying to fucking dodge and weave fucking cheap Houthi drones. Like it turned the ship so violently that the fucking aircraft slid off the deck. This happened twice. It's like, oops. Like everybody put on their seatbelts. Yeah. So if that's what the Houthis can do, like, and again, the rocket trucks. You get too close to the shore. Just the rocket trucks. You got 40 rockets coming at you at once. You ain't shooting those down. You know what I mean? You might get some of them, but they're going to be coming in too fast. Those hit one warship, every hit's going to kill people. And if you get a what do you call a Bismarck scenario with the Hood versus Bismarck scenario, one little rocket comes in, Katyusha style rocket comes into a fucking VLS system right there, bang, that whole thing detonates. You got like 150 missiles blowing up, anywhere from like 40 to 150 missiles blowing up on any warship. Goodbye warship. You know what I mean? Like, again, you got to think about how this can play out. The only thing that the United States usually goes by, and this again, it's the same thing with Iran, is Donald Trump attacks Iran because he knows the Iranians are going to do a calculated counterstrike, right? That they're not going to escalate. They're just going to do a symbolic counterstrike. And that's what they do, because they don't want, the Iranians don't want war. But the longer they take to take out Iran, the more advanced they become, right? But at some point, if it's gloves off, and I think with the Danes, it'll be gloves off, and this is what they're telling you, look, we will, if we feel like you guys are threatening us, sure, you bring in 25,000 guys, and the Danes start bringing in guys, it's like, okay, we got 8 rocket trucks here ready to fucking, level the base. Do we do again, I doubt the Danes would ever do a preemptive strike. Why? Because they're not murderers. But they could. They're like, okay, no, look, there's a carrier group coming. This is not a show of force. It's not a bully tactic. It's the attack. Okay. We've been tipped off by a U.S. general or something like that, or somebody saying, yeah, be prepared. They're about to attack you. Right. And if I was Russia watching this, that's the first thing I'd be sending to the Danes. Oh, yeah. We just noticed a bunch of U.S. subs coming up the strait. Here comes a carrier group. Yeah, looks like they're going to attack you. Well, thanks for the heads up, right? You get 25,000 guys land on the island, and suddenly the rocket trucks break loose, or somebody just like falls asleep on the butt and get had a little bit too much fucking to drink the night before or whatever. You never know, anything can happen, right? And if that happened, you lose 25,000 guys in probably about 15, 20 minutes. Just from, and the whole base, right? It'd be fucking leveled with these rockets. Again, when you start looking at the weaponry that can be wielded, it's just like, okay, just dismissing it, saying, well, we'll take that out, we'll take this out, we'll take that out. And it's like, okay, so the guy with the Stinger missile, if he shoots down a Black Hawk with 16 guys on board, you lose 16 guys. Oh, yeah, but we shot him. Yeah, okay, yeah, but you lost 16 guys for what? Because Donald Trump wanted to steal an island. There's no other, that's not even really fully economically viable in the short where, like, it's not a way. It's like the Venezuelan oil. It's going to take 4 to 5 years just to get that stuff flowing. You know what I mean? I mean, sure, some of it's flowing right now, but in the quantity they need to cut off Alberta, Alberta will divert its oil supply to other nations long before the Americans can reap the benefits of stealing Venezuela's oil. And this is the thing that Trump keeps doing to you guys is like, oh, well, this is going to be a major win if we just steal the Syrian oil or the Iraqi oil or what. Okay, well, Iraqi oil is not Trump, but it's George Bush. But it didn't work. Or we're going to steal all the minerals from Syria and Iraq. It's not working. Why? Because these zones are too unstable of areas to mine in. Like people don't want to mine there because it's too dangerous. You can't move a fuel truck from the oil field to the refinery without it getting hijacked by ISIS guys, right? So like what I mean, nobody wants to work there. Ukraine, making that $1 trillion deal with Ukraine for the minerals, that are under Russian feet. Yeah. So when are you going to see the benefits from that? Like again, Trump is looking for these desperate wins, and they're like when all he has to do is do his fucking job. You know what I mean? Okay, Carney, you can hate him as much as you want, but one thing about Carney is that he's at least doing what we pay politicians to do. Go get trade deals, okay? And even if you're the biggest Carney hater out there, you can't knock that. That is the thing. Like, okay, if we're diverting our trade, and we've diverted a massive amount of trade in 1 year, like over 15.5%, we've lost with the Americans, but we've already made up an extra 24%, which it has, positive economic benefits. It's going to take about another year or two before you start to really see the money rolling in from that. So all the jobs losses we've got, which is outrageous because, there could be up to 18 million people using some sort of benefits from the Canadian government. That includes our retirees, all the immigrants that are on welfare, you name it. It's a nightmare, right? And he has to start wrangling the budget. Like right now, I'm hearing budget cuts here, there, ever here in Quebec. Everything's getting cut. Why? Because we're way past our means. I'm not hearing the budget cuts in the States. All I'm hearing is private sector losses. Right? But the United States needs to do budget cuts, like big time. The easiest budget cut that Donald Trump could do, if he really wants to make America great again, he doesn't, but if he did, is cut the military spending. Stop the wars, Maybe stop agitating your fucking neighbors. Maybe get rid of the fucking tariffs. These tariffs are not working, And I understand how a tariff works, and I'm not opposed to tariffs if they're strategically done. Canada and China. Okay. China was playing hardball with their canola. Now that's kind of dropped back. Why? Because we were playing hard with their EVs. Yes, I'm not a big fan of saturating the Canadian market with Chinese EVs because that hurts our guys. But on the other hand, if you can work out something reasonable, which it seems like they have, yes, it will hurt Tesla. It'll hurt these overpriced EVs coming in from the States because they have monopoly, right? Sure. But it might not hurt our guys as much. And it's a slight benefit for the Chinese, a slight benefit for us. Okay, if it's mutually beneficial, it is most likely a positive trade deal, even if it's with people we don't really want to trade with. And that's what Carney's looking at. It's like, okay, well, the people that we were too morally superior to do trade with before, if we want to actually save our economy, we're going to have to make a compromise on our on that, right? And that's what he's doing. And you know what? That's the right direction to take because within 5 years, the United States is not going to we're not going to be beholden to their economy whatsoever. Like Trump will have no leverage. Trump is losing leverage against Canada on a daily basis. And a $1 trillion trade deal, whether it's going to be a good trade deal or a bad trade deal, I don't know. But I mean, like right now, Carney's up by about $2 trillion in trade. Where's all the anti-liberal people, telling you this? You need to know this. Why? Because yes, a lot of problems in Canada. Justin Trudeau created the everything problem just like every else. But the United States has the same problems we have. The UK has the same problems we have. It's just, leveling degrees. Like, who has a bigger homeless population? Canada or the United States? Per capita? I don't know. It's probably about equal. It's crazy, right? We have 10 cities everywhere. And the difference is our 10 cities, the poor bastards are in minus fucking 30. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we have to fix that. Whatever. And it's not going to be fixed overnight. That's the thing. These problems get created overnight, but their true effects are not felt for about a year or two after. Like people think like all the inflation and stuff like that they're feeling now from Trump's tariffs. I'm like, yeah, but this is just the very beginning of it. Think about 2008 and then 2010 and then 2012. By 2012, then you saw the full effects of the 2008 collapse. It took about 4 years for it to really fucking wipe out people's savings and everything like that, to the point where you had Italian seniors out there blowing their brains out in the middle of the street because they were too old to get a job, right? 2020, they just used the senior homes to kill everybody, right? Because they didn't want to pay and then, again, it's a part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's what these globalists do. They're all fucking evil. Trump, Carney, they're all evil, but they are mob bosses fighting. However, Carney wants to be, basically where the Americans have dropped the ball. Canada is about to become a world superpower. We're going to move from a second a middle power country to a superpower, especially economically. We're going to probably out fucking GDP everybody in 5 years. And I know nobody sees that. They don't see it, but it's like, it's not what he says, it's what he's doing. This is why Pierre Poilievre is starting to have a hard time. It's because, okay, well, number one, Carney stole a lot of his platform. So, I voted for Pierre, but we got Carney, but I got half of what Carney was going to do anyway. Which there was so much similarities there. People don't point that out. So it's like it was going to be a win-win, no matter who you got on some things. And okay, can we tolerate this or not on the other things? And the thing is we're not out of the wood, we're not out of the water, yet at all. And again, Trump is just trying to make everything difficult for everybody else because he's failing. So does everybody else. True psychopath, right? So it gets crazier, like all the protesting and distraction riots and all that. And I understand the Greenland thing is for a distraction. What is the distraction? Will there be a deal made? Again, right now, if Trump is playing a 4D chess plan, and Lutnick's out there saying that, oh no, well, what's going to happen is if you retaliate against our tariffs, well, we're going to push it. We'll just go tit for tat like we were doing, and then we'll eventually get what we want anyway. That's what Lutnick's pretty much saying at the World Economic Forum or the Davos, right? And it's like, no, like you're not going to bully, especially a northern-minded person, right? Like the Americans are not northern people; they're southern people. Even though a lot of them live in the northern United States, that's why you tend to have more Democrats in the north, right? Again, I've explained this between like these, Canadians are different than Americans. And it's not like we're better or worse. It's just we're different. We have a different ethos, right? And yes, we're 98% culturally the same. But when you get into these northern climates, people tend to be more collective based. Not necessarily liberal, but just more collective, more tribal, because it comes with the territory of being in a harsher climate. This has been well studied through, whatever. So you're not going to take people who are used to overall, even with the problems we have in Canada, overall people are very cooperative towards one another. I'm not saying we're better, but we do tend to go along to get along. When in Rome, do as the Roman a lot more. Like the newcomers, not so much because they're not acclimatized to the old stock Canadian way of thinking, right? But the old stock way of Canadian thinking, although it might differ from the Swedes and the Finns and so that, when it comes to the collective hive mind of certain things, that falls in line right away without even any cohesion. It's just this is what we got to do, right? So that's why you see the Nordic 8, which again, I know a lot of people are just, they dismiss everything outside the United States. It's like, oh, well, without the United States, NATO is done for. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think, if anything, what I'm seeing is the signaling is that NATO is going to double down, even if it's not as viable or large as what it was under the Americans. But then the American influence is gone from NATO. You might see different cooperation levels. You will probably see an EU army. You're seeing the Nordic 8 is already now a thing. It's a thing. It's it's a done deal. You know what I mean? It's now a new northern defense system. Yes, what does it look like in 10 years? It looks like we can defend against anybody in 10 years at the rate we're going. So we're just cutting the Americans out. That's all. So the Americans are not going to have any access to the Arctic unless we say so, right? And there will be nothing they can do about it because the Arctic is going to be defended by us as a group. You attack one of us, you attack all of us. So right away, like I say, the United States is on path to going to war, physical shooting war with about 40 to 45 countries in the northern hemisphere, in the southern hemisphere, and in the Middle East. Right, and it could happen flash in the pan overnight. Mexico will probably be the spearhead of the Southern Alliance. That, again, we'll see. Now, mind you, if the United States attacks Mexico, now I understand beefing up the border and stuff like that. But if they do something like, again, if Trump was to be a reasonable person right now, like he can't, there's nothing Trump can do for the rest of his term or as long as he's alive. Again, I doubt he's still alive in 2027. Not calling for it, but I'm just saying I don't see how it doesn't happen with all this agitation, right? Again, there's probably U.S. military generals right now sitting down. How do we kill the president? He's going to get us all killed. How are we going to stop him? How do we make it look like an accident? What can we put in his food? That's what the CIA is talking about right now. Again, when Trump dies, it's going to be like a cross between the movie Smoking Aces and Smoking Aces 2 and the game Clue. Was it Professor Plum with a pipe wrench in the library? I don't know. But that's what we're about to see, right? Because Trump is the wild card. Now, mind you, Trump is just going along with all his idiot people that he's, like the Lutnicks and all that. And I forget the other guy's name there. There's two real prominent ones. And these guys give the worst. They're hardcore Zionists, whatever. The Marco Rubio Zionist and the Cuban faction, all that, like going to war. Like Marco Rubio is going to get Trump to attack Cuba, right? Which the Cubans could have some Cold War surprises for us. They might have a few warheads still sitting there that we're not aware of, right? And all of a sudden, fucking Palm Springs gets nuked or Miami or something gets a fucking nuke. It's like you'll never see it coming, right? Sure, it'd be the end of Cuba, but like at what cost? That's all you have to add up now is every Trump's military venture at what cost? Again, you're not fighting Saddam's army. The second most advanced military the Americans have ever fought was Vietnam, right? I don't count Iran as the Americans fought because the Iranians haven't really truly gloves off hit back. When they do, it's going to be, again, you're going to lose a carrier group, maybe two, in the Mediterranean or in the Arabian Sea, wherever they're going to, again, the Iranians have rockets and cruise missiles and stuff that can reach that far. So no matter the Tomahawk missiles, the warships are going to have to be too close to Iran to be able to hit all the targets they need. Yes, the U.S. will have the upper hand, but I think the Iranians, when they decide to hit back, the main thing is the U.S. military bases. You're looking at the death of about 50,000 people because how do you get those people out of there once the base is destroyed? You won't be able to fly them out anymore. You know what I mean? And if they're under like a week worth of bombardment, they're going to have militia groups basically surrounding the U.S. bases, mortaring the shit out of them. Like you don't have enough gunship helicopters to fend them off. You'll just lose so many people. You can lose 50,000 people in a week. Will the American people say, yeah, well, it was worth it because they're terrorists. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, and again, what a war you started. Again, I can't believe we're here, but is this how the United States dies? By its own hand, attacking its own allies? I don't know. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be brutal. European brothers' wars, no matter where they're going to take place, are absolutely fucking brutal. Like, yes, I've said it a million times. When African countries go to war, villages burn. When Middle Eastern countries go to war, countries burn. When European countries go to war, or Western countries go to war, continents burn. Right? Is that how China and Russia wins? You know what I mean? Like maybe they're right. Maybe Trump is on it with Putin. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he is an agent of the Kremlin. Who knows? I don't think he is. I just think he's just an insane egomaniac that got put into power by Zionists, right? And now he's kind of like a bit out of control because, as Ronald Reagan would say, the lunatics, how he referred to like the Zionist faction and Henry Kissinger was like the lunatics in the basement. That's what he called them. Don't let the lunatics in the basement get out. And now we see what happened when they do, right? So there's more to cover, but I got to get some other stuff done here. It's really crazy where we're at. How far will Trump push this? We see Greenlandic mobilization starting, in its early stages. Once we start to see the Canadian military mobilize, and again, I believe stopgap will be our saving grace, meaning maybe make a deal with Germany to get some Lend-Lease Leopards. Let's get because we have about 15,000 U.S. vehicles that we're going to have to destroy coming across the border, right? And about 1 million troops, maybe up to 4. So we're going to need artillery. We're going to need all that. So we can get some old M109s, strategically place them around the country. We could probably get Leopard 1s and 2s, probably at least 2,000 of those, and maybe about 500 more 2A4s. Okay, they won't be the front line. We'll use our 2A6s and stuff like that, which seem to be holding up the best out of the Allied tanks in Ukraine. The Leopards, the Leopards are too heavy, but the Challengers and the Abrams are way too heavy in the Ukraine, right through the mud and stuff like that. So the Leopards seem to be the ones faring out the best, but even at that, it's like the Leopard's better than the T-72s. There's no doubt about that. But against the drones, that's the thing, right? The thing is Canada is building these military drones on behalf of Ukraine. Whatever, and we do have quite a bit of anti-tank weapons. So I think where Canada would be smart is to, we got the Spike system. Build 20,000 of those, 26,000 of those. Start getting them all, garrisons all around the country, right? Just so you have overnight mobilization, so we don't get Ukraine. Look, when the United States or when Russia rolled into the Ukraine, they did the Red Dawn thing, right? And what happened? Okay, yeah, it was an impressive show for about 24 hours until everybody was out of fuel. This is the exact problem the United States would have trying to invade Canada. Say, oh yeah, well, we'll just roll our tanks into Ottawa. Yeah, but if there's guys sitting there with M74s, in the Canadian Rock Shield, good luck finding them with the drones in time before your tank gets taken out. You know what I mean? We're like the number one builder of Manpad launchers, and we're getting a whole bunch more. It's just when do we get them? Mobilize, 80 millimeter, 120 millimeter mortars. Start building thousands and thousands of those. Because by the time the Americans could mobilize a plan to attack Canada, because they're not mobilized for it right now, we'd have enough time to build enough weapons to destroy them coming in. I hate to say it, I really do, but it's where we're going. You know what I mean? It's where we're going. So the Great Lakes is where Trump, I think, is going to make the first push into Canada. It might be there. It won't be the prairies. I mean, everybody thinks the prairies, we'll just roll tanks through the prairies. Yeah, do that. yeah. Trust me, the Canadian military, they're sitting there. Are they going to do that? I hope they do that. Fuck, make it easy for us. Why not? Why? Say, well, yeah, but it'd be a blitzkrieg. We'd just go right through there like a hot knife through butter. No, the only thing that'd be going like a hot knife through butter would be the anti-tank weapons, the TOW missiles. Sure, we don't have a lot of them, but we have enough. And then again, we have like 900 APCs. Yes, I know there's a lot of our assets are over in Europe. I understand that too. But domestically, we could, get a lot of anti-tank weapons pre-mobilized, keep everybody honest. It's sad that it's come to this, that our number one friend and ally wants to go to war with us, to steal our stuff, right? Because they said so. Again, manifest destiny is a fucking retarded brain disease that Americans get from time to time. They think, oh, well, we just got to attack Canada. Because it's like, why? You've already learned twice not to do that, I mean, if we have to fucking burn the fucking White House down again, you know what I mean? Like really? Technically, it was the British. It was Canadians. Yes, we were of British descent, but it's Canada. Come on. Again, the home advantage that we're going to have. Uh, and again, it's the idea, like the advanced equipment. Now, mind you, this is a war between Canada and the United States would benefit Russia and China immensely. Why? Because it doesn't matter how many U.S. satellites there are, because it's the communications that get cut first. Yes, it goes on both sides, but the number one thing that gets taken out is the communications. Suddenly, your drones are just in line of sight. You know what I mean? All your communication towers in the States would, just the saboteurs would get those alone. So suddenly, it wouldn't matter how advanced your echelon systems are, because the F-35s would have to fly line of sight to get the relay data, right, of radars and stuff like that, which would shrink down everything. And then every time you take out the communications, you're blinded. Once you're blinded, then the F-35s have to turn on the radar. The second they turn on the radar, they're dead. That's why the aircraft, like the Russians still use aircraft radar, so they're coming, right? You'll detect them, but their radars are really good and really long range. It's just if the ground crew has the relay system set up, okay, so you have your air defense system sitting there off, completely buried in the landscape, and you got the guy right down there with the radar, and they're finding ping pong relays to, okay, it's here, okay, it's passing you now, okay, turn on the SAMs. That's how they do it. In Vietnam, they did it a little bit different. In Cuba, they did it a little different. What they do is turn on one to track the airplane to go in and lure them right into the center of, you got a, SAM here, like they're miles apart. You won't detect them, right? That could still happen. Like you're not going to know where everything is. You got a Leopard tank sitting in somebody's garage, coming through, southern Ontario. You'll fire you'll fire from you'll never see it. Oh yeah, but we got thermal imaging and stuff like that. Yeah, but the time it would take you to go through every fucking barn in southern Ontario, just that overlooks the 401 or the Highway 16, Highway 17. These are the only ways you're coming in and out of Canada. You know what I mean? In Ontario, right? Yeah, you could have fucking anti-tank guns and artillery guns just sitting there. Sure, it's World War II tactics, but there's so many ways to fool the drones and stuff like that, and the thermal imaging that, and then just all the decoys out that you'd be destroying. This is what's happening in the Ukraine already. It's this type of warfare. It doesn't reward haste moves. Look, if the Ukrainians were smart on day one, they would have sent out their frog foots right away to strafe those fucking lines of Russian tanks and stuff sitting there without fuel, right? The Americans, they're going to move so far, and then that tank's going to be out of fuel, right? And all we have to take out is the fuel trucks, right? They're vulnerable. You can take them out with a 308. You just fire 9 shots into the tanker. By the time they realize they've lost all their fuel, they're sitting there waiting, just sitting there waiting to be mortar food. You know what I mean? Again, there's so many, the tactics outrun the hardware and the software more than anything. It is what it is. I know how I'd fight against a superior force. The Afghanis had their way. The Viet Cong had their way. The Canadians in World War I, World War II, did it their way, and sure, Artona, we fight through the walls. You know what I mean? If you employ some of the tactics that the Russians and the Ukrainians are doing, like the Russians, when they come to a house, they don't clear it room by room. They fire an RPG into it, and then they go in, and 8 hand grenades through every window, and then they go in. Oh, well, they might kill civilians. And? Yeah. The property is cleared. Everybody's fucking plastered against the wall and body parts, right? Well, that's what had happened in an invasion. It's like, okay, well, you got a bunch of guys sitting there. They look like a bunch of farmers. Don't realize they're like Canadian forces or mobilized, conscripts. On the other side of the tractor is a fucking, RPG. It's just so many ways to repel an attack. If you plan even a week ahead, you've got a huge advantage. Against any military. The idea, the reason why I say we would take the northern United States is because By the time the northern United States or the United States military has made any ground into Canada, it's lost half of its military and almost all of its APCs and everything like that, just from the drone strikes alone. Yeah, and then there's just natural ambushes, like pitfalls, tank traps, tank mines, IEDs. I mean, if there's any group of people that you don't want making IEDs, it's the Canadian forces. They learned a lot by Binney in Afghanistan, right? Yeah, you run over a 50-pound artillery shell. Goodbye tank. You know what I mean? That fucker will be 20, 50 feet in the air. Everybody just fucking vaporized on the inside. Yeah, like mobilization is the key to winning the war against the United States. Is just fight an extremely defensive war. The Finns have already figured this out. Like again, how does a smaller force defend against a larger force? Well, that's what you do is you defend, right? The Finns, their strategy, they're dug in. The Russians rolling tanks in like they did in Ukraine would be a slaughter fest to the Russians. Like they can't do it that easy, right? And that's that's the deterrence is just to make sure, and you let them know. Like I have a hunch this time next year, Carney's going to come out and say, well, and he won't direct it directly at the Americans, but the Americans will know it's directed at them. Like all the Davos speech is pretty much directed at, fuck you, Trump, we're not going to go along with your thing. It's just done in a politically correct way. That's what the whole no sign in the window thing is about. And I understand the pundits, like the rebel news types, will be out there saying, "Oh, what's he talking about? He's a retard." It's like, no. He's playing diplomat. You know what I mean? He's politicking. So yes, this is the biggest fear that the Western world has right now is America. America is a liability to the world. The world is out there pretty much saying, yes, America is a threat to all of us. Now, that's not America first. And I know there's Americans that are like, well, Canada's betraying us because we're moving closer to China. Well, moving closer to China or push closer to China? You know what I mean? Ask yourself the intellectually honest question. Do you really think the 5D chess move of threatening to annex and use military force against your number one allies is a wise decision? You really think that people are not going to have a negative response to it? Oh yeah, but what he's really doing is, here comes the Q-tards, right? Cue the Q-tards. No, Donald Trump is not the Q5 chess. There's no evidence of that. Nobody's coming to save us, right? Donald Trump is on a warpath. He's on a Napoleonic excursion to steal all this land and territory, to say, we got it for the Northern Hemisphere, our hemispherical defense and blah, 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 and we're going to control our domain. What he's trying to do, basically listen to Steve Bannon, he pretty much spells it out. Trump is going to probably most likely find a way using martial law to this, and that's probably what this ICE thing is being manifested into with all the agitation against the Antifa. Like, look, if the ICE should be really focused on the southern border and California and Texas and Louisiana and all, that's where all the illegals are. There's like a couple of million of them just down there. There's a few 100,000 in Minnesota, right? Sure, get them, but where's your priority, right? Like, get them where they're the most accessible. But again, the ICE thing, okay, I agree with the ICE thing to a degree, and I understand, yes, the optics are going to be bad no matter what. I mean, what do you think mass deportation of 50 million people or 40 million people or whatever it is going to look like? It's going to be messy, right? You got to stomach it. I get it. But, in Trump's favor, now, mind you, there's 2 million, I've heard 600,000 and up to 2 or 4 million people that have self-deported. Because if that's the case, then Trump is on the right. He's doing what his people elected him to do, whether you like that or not. That's what he got voted to do. And okay, fine. I wish we could do it here. But I don't like the way he's going about it. But if that's the result, then that's the result. Remigration now is going to be painful no matter how we do it, right? I think the easiest way is cut off the welfare, and even easier, just do workfare. Say, oh, you want welfare? Okay, well, every cent you got from us for free, you're going to have to work it off. You want to see your welfare recipients leave? There you go, because they don't want to work, right? But anyway, getting back to the distraction in Minneapolis, I'm not going to put a lot of effort onto that one because I think most people see it for what it is. They're bringing in Alaskan forces, all white guys. You know, knowing that this is telling. It's either agitation or that they can't get the multicultural um, forces to go along with it. So again, if we've seen a U.S. So far two outspoken a commander and a general telling Trump, no, fuck you, we're not going after Greenland, or no, we're not going to just murder people with a pirate navy in the in the Gulf of Mexico on illegal wars, acts of war. This is the beginnings of military coups. So Trump could get Maduro'd by his own guys. You know what I mean. My hunch, it's going to be a MAGA veteran that's going, or a couple of them coming out in an insurrection group and actually kill Trump that way, and probably multiple Zionist head figures as well, because it's just we're there. We're at that point where Banana Republic. If you create a Banana Republic, people are going to Banana Republic, right? I'm not calling for any of it. I just don't see how it doesn't happen. The indicators are there for a coup. Trump is doing everything he can to piss off his own population. You can't piss off half your population and not expect civil war. I just don't know. Whatever. You say, yeah, but Canada's polarized too. Yes, we're polarized, but we're way, way under just the elbows up. The normies under the elbows up thing is a massive unification of the country. When you have Quebec, going elbows up, Maple Leaf elbows up, it's only a matter of time before we get to the World War I style Canadian Maple Leaf up nationalism. At that point, we get remigration now and all that, but it's going to be done civilly, right? So I'm not sure what next crazy thing's going to happen. Yes, we have this Northern Lights solar flare thing happening. It's to the point where people, they've canceled all flights over the poles because of the disruption of the magnetic solar flare. Apparently, it's the biggest one we've had in like 20 years or something like that. Whatever. So we might see some communications disruption this week, whatever, internet blackouts, stuff like that. Carrington event, I don't think so, but you never know. That would be a fucking hell of a monkey wrench in right now, is that. The food inflation going up, just like I said, everywhere. Inflation is up a bit in Canada, but it's mostly kind of leveling out, where it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, where in the States it's just going up. Look, guys, I don't give financial advice because, everybody wants to sue everybody if they make a wrong decision, right? But I will say this, common sense. Don't keep any more money in the bank than you're willing to lose at this stage of the game. The system is dying. It's been like that for a while, but everything's just becoming more worthless. I think Cliff High called this out, it's just, you get paid on Friday, you spend all your paycheck by Friday night or Saturday just because it's not going to be worth as much the week after. Well, when you go from $4,500 gold into $4,700 gold, up from $3,000 gold in under 6 months, again, what does the world look like at $5,400 gold that I'm predicting to $8,500, like $8,500 gold? Like, how many people are dead? You know what I mean? Like, that's what we have to survive. Every fucking ass clown in power is, just one's worse than the other. It is truly dystopic. It's not Mad Max yet, but it's dystopic. Parts are Mad Max, again, the radical left kills itself. Just stay away from them because they're going to starve out. You know what I mean? Like, all these immigrants that are coming in, going on welfare, they're going to starve out under the collapse, right? Because who's going to feed them? Africa, they're going to starve out. It's my book 2060 Dystopia. I'm working on chapter 4. Hopefully, I'll get chapter 5 done. Started tonight. My goal is to have it written in, by the end of March, and hopefully, at least on the second draft, the third draft by the end of March. I know, a lot of work. But there's stuff that I'm using real world events now to kind of predict what the world's going to be like in 2060 if we live to tell the tale. And some of the stuff, you have to understand, the beginnings of that story started on my BitChute channel as a kind of like a narrated story, kind of like an audiobook without the book, right? And it was just off the top of the cuff of my head and stuff like that. And there were so many things that I said in 2023 that have already come true. It's like, fuck sakes. It's kind of like when East Coast Canadian asked me after I did my 2025 predictions. Oh, hey, do you want to do I'll do 10 completely outrageous predictions, and you do 10 outrageous predictions, and we'll see what actually comes through. Comes through, and like just as ridiculous as you can come up with, right? So I said, yeah, sure, fine, that sounds fun. About 8 of his came true. About 8 of mine came true. I was like, fuck sakes, I'm never doing that again. So now I'm writing a book about what's most likely going to happen and how dystopic it's going to be. And we've already seen, like, I can't write the stuff fast enough and it's already coming true. But I just got to stop. I just got to stop, you know what I mean? But look, I have no malice towards the Americans and stuff like that. And I know how it comes out, the cheerleading, and it sounds like I hate Americans. I don't. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, I don't want a brothers' war. And that's why I'm not doing our military will fight your military and cha-cha-cha. What I'm saying is, no, the reality is when modern military, we don't know how bad it's going to be other than the indicator in Ukraine of what a NATO versus NATO battle would look like. You know what I mean? And I don't think NATO's ready to throw in the towel. Number one, there's too much money being made off of it. I think it just turns into something else without the United States. But as soon as the United States gets out of NATO, it loses all global influence, including petrodollar influence. It's the death of the United States. Why? Because the retaliatory isolationism that we're seeing of the fuck Trump economy is already bad enough. You've lost trillions of dollars, like about $1 trillion or so dollars in lost business around the world due to fucking us over. Canada's gaining business, right? And it's not that we're better in the sense of, we're better than the Americans, blah, blah, blah. No, it's the idea that we actually have policy, not just this Twitter policy. Like, Twitter policy doesn't work. You can't take, Donald Trump did something really fucked up on behalf of Americans. Now, I understand the Trump cheerleaders will applaud this. But basically, he took a private email from Macron and tweeted about it on Twitter. So what that signals to the rest of the world, whether you like Macron or not, is not the issue here. I don't like the man. I don't like any of the world European leaders at all. I don't like any leaders in the world at all. There's no good. They're all fucking evil. Mob bosses fighting. But he basically broke a huge trust amongst the international community, meaning if you private message Donald Trump, he might just air it out on Twitter. Right? So that is a recipe for disaster. In the sense that, okay, now that cuts, people are just going to say, no, there's no point in talking to Trump because he's just, you know what I mean? We can't deal with the guy. Like, we just have to avoid him. Meaning the United States is going to suffer, the American people are going to suffer for this. Meaning we can't make a trade deal because he'll just blurt it out, whatever. The Americans cannot be trusted. They can't be trusted with business. They can't be trusted with the military. They've gone full fucking retard, right? And Americans are going to suffer because of this. It's guys. Again, I'm looking at all the indicators. I cannot find. What Lutnick's out there saying the U.S. economy is growing like crazy, blah, blah, blah. What he's not telling you is that it's stimulus. That when you close down your government for 3 months or whatever it's been, and then suddenly open it up and the postal office is open again and people start mailing in their health cover insurance and you get a 24% boost in GDP just because people are renewing their health cover insurance, that's not growth. That's just a backlog, right? When 1,200 data centers, these things are for military uses and whatever, it's not going to work, but when 92% of your GDP is coming from that, again, that's American taxpayer dollars paying for that. That's stimulus. It's not growth. It looks like growth, but it's not. It's growth in the sense that, yeah, you're hiring contractors and stuff like that to build these data centers, but it's not growth in the sense that it's actual economic growth. Economic growth is when your tourism gets diverted from the United States to Canada and we have the number one windfall of Canadian tourism that we've ever seen, just because of people around the world coming to Canada and Canadians staying home and tourism around here. That's actual growth, right? Now, is it going to be long lasting growth? Well, it depends. If relations improve with Canada and the United States, which they're not. They're devolving, right? The Americas has Canada as a hostile country, pegged as a hostile country policy wise. This is not a good thing. This is the stepping stones to war, and then all the the MAGA people. Oh, Canada betrayed the United States, and again, have you not been hearing what your president has been saying to us? Calling for war, telling us you're going to destroy our economy. Okay, sure, you don't like Canadians, I get that, but can you not at least understand, the response? If you came in home to your wife every night and say, you're useless, I pay for everything, you owe me, and you better be more loyal or else I'm going to beat you senseless and take everything from you. And then you get, next day you come back and it's like, I've left you, fuck off. Why did she leave me? You know what I mean? Like, that's the scenario we're in. It's not Canada's better. It's you're attacking us. If you Canada, yeah, but it's 4D chess to get this big win for America. Well, okay, fine, whatever. But can you not see how hostile it is to Canada, to Greenland, to the list goes on. It's like this idea that you have to defend against us because we're betraying you. Well, maybe stop fucking betraying your own and stop betraying everybody. I mean, 80% of Americans can fucking figure this out, right? There is a handful of retards out there in the States, maybe about 4%. Some say as high as 8% that are okay with the annexation of Greenland. But I doubt that. I doubt it's even that high. Yes, there's always those retarded neocons out there. I get it. They want to attack and go to war with everybody. I get it. It's in our national security interest to just preemptively go to war with everybody. Well, someday that preemptive war is going to come to American soil. You're not ready for it. America has never fought that kind of a war against modern militaries on its own home soil. You'll lose your Navy within the first 2 years. Once you don't have the U.S. Navy, there will be naval ships, out there, doing naval blockades. You won't have merchants coming into and what will probably happen first is you're going to see the trade being diverted and just not, it's like suddenly the harbors are empty because, the trade ships are not coming in. That's already starting to happen. Trade is still at, like, say, 2023 levels at last time I count with the United States. So it's low. It's dipped down a bit. It's probably about 6 or 8%. Don't quote me on the number. It was like the Americans are now receiving about 6 or 8% less product from the world. Something like that. Right? But when you lose like 40, 80%, the input losses for your own manufacturing is going to be devastating. And it's not going to be like, well, then we'll just start building it here. The whole thing is what a lot of Americans don't understand is the reason why you buy so much from us is because you can't produce it yourself. The reason why you import stuff, it's stuff your population is too big to sustain itself. And China has the same problem. If China ever gets isolated and people say, we're not sending you anything, their economy dies overnight. Their people starve overnight. They can't feed their own population. That's why they have to do what they're doing. The Americans can't feed its own population fully. Us, it's the opposite. We have way less people. We have like 41 million, which is too much. But it's for the amount of resources we have. We are diverting our own resources and beefing up our own manufacturing. It's just it takes 10 to 30 years to completely become self-reliant. But we have enough resources where we have more resources than people, where the Americans have more people than resources. So to a degree, yes, you could probably feed yourselves over time, but that's going to be very strategically hard when you get 80% of your fertilizer from Canada. So just going to war with Canada What are you going to do? Bomb the potash mines and kill us all? Like Americans do stuff like that. They always attack food supplies and stuff like that. But you have to understand the counter retaliation to that is your food stores, your fuel supplies. Again, all that stuff gets taken out in the first few months. And it's not repairable. Once the fuel stops, the war stops. At that point, it's whoever hunkers down in the most and can get their resources back online quickest. You know what I mean? My hunch is we can do it here faster in Canada. Why? Because if we mobilize early and we stockpile food and stuff like that, say if Donald Trump says, that's it, we're invading, here we go. Well, a successful invasion would take probably between, at earliest, 6 months to 3 years to plan against Greenland. It'll probably take 3 to 5 years to come up with a plan against Canada. By that time, we're going to be militarily more strong. And if we understand that you're mobilizing to do this, the first skirmish basically puts Canada in full mobilization mode. So at that point, you have to destroy, to kill all the Canadians, you have to destroy our food supply, our water supply, all that stuff overnight, our fuel supplies and all that, electricity grid and all that. And the Americans can do that, right? But they can't sustain that, right? So, and of course, the blowback from that is the retaliation, and you got to factor in just the amount of agitation groups in the States that would, counter retaliate just on our behalf, right? To fight Trump. Instant civil war the second the Canadian-American war starts. But it is going to happen at this stage. Like, I don't see, like, moving towards China has now put the U.S. Military and government in, okay, we have to annex Canada mode. We have, that they see that as a military action, not an economic one. Well, an economic one, sure. But again, the biggest trade deal Canada has pretty much just ever landed. Even Harper didn't land that. Again, Carney's out playing Harper, which is not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a great thing for Canada. But that is a major fucking fuck you to the United States, right? Trump's playing it down, saying, "Oh yeah, sure. Well, they should be making deals because what." No, this stings Trump because it's like, okay, well, there's leverage Canada has that, again, Canada now needs the United States less. The faster Carney can divert trade from the United States to other countries and diversify our trade, and this is all he's been saying and all he's been doing is everything other than complying with the United States. He only does it where we have to, but this is every other nation is doing things. Okay, well, they got us by the short and curlies right now. We'll appease Trump for now, but okay, let's start the Nordic 8. Let's build up the mid-power economies to make a super bloc so these fucking superpowers like Russia, China, and the United States can't bully everybody around. You know what I mean? And to lose that kind of influence is going to be very painful. And it will affect the United States the most because Russia doesn't really have the global influence China and the United States have. And China doesn't bite the hand that feeds, right? It's like, no, where the Americans blow up bridges, the Chinese will build them. Why? Because they only care about the Chinese empire and doing business. They don't care about your human rights. They don't care about this, that, and the other thing. They do want to project power in the South Pacific. There's no doubt about that. That's what they're building up for. But they're doing it in a strategic way. Look, even Stephen Harper had to come out recently saying, yeah, no, the Chinese are better at doing business than us. We're trying, like he's trying to not throw his own under the bus. Like he said, I don't want to attack, right, but, we can't bully our way into trade deals. Basically is what he's saying. We have to have mutual benefit. And all this could have, if Trump was truly make America great, all he had to do with Greenland. Hey, look, we want to put the defense domes up there. Maybe possibly do more trade deals with you. We'll even sweeten the deal. We'll give you a better deal than what the Chinese can give you. Instead of going with the capitalism, we have to undercut the Chinese. Well, you can't undercut third world labor. We got to stop that. And the thing is he could have killed them with kindness. Saying, whatever you guys need, let's increase trade. We'll give you jobs in Greenland, Denmark, whatever. We'll get your guys working on the in the mines with us, whatever you guys are willing for. Move about it that way, the way Carney did. The Greenlanders are so friendly to us right now. again, we've seen the same thing with Iceland, where Iceland at one point wanted to use the Canadian currency. Basically they were like going to self-annex. Here, Turks and Caicos, again, same thing. They beg us to annex them. Like about every 2 years, Turks and Caicos says, Canada, please take us, please. Conquer our island, please, please. Yeah, you bring your military, we'll fight you with margaritas and pizza. And beaches, nice beaches. Come down, please, come down, come annex us, please. They've been begging. What I mean? It's the whiskey war between Denmark and Canada, and Justin Trudeau got rid of it. I'm so pissed on that. Over Humboldt Island. I mean, the best war in human history, like the friendliest war ever. And it was basically just more like a gag, right? Like it really, nobody cares who gets that. It's a fucking rock in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Who cares, right? But yeah, I was like, it's fun. It's fun. Okay, when we do the patrol, we'll put our flag up and leave you whiskey. When you guys come by, throw your flag up, leave a bottle of whiskey. If I'm ever prime minister, that's the first war I'm declaring is the whiskey war, because it was the best war ever. It was so good. I was upset when I was actually legitimately upset when that war ended, because that's the type of stuff we need. Like it's so endearing. It's the stuff we need in this world. No, Carney's making the deals with Greenland. Look, we're not going to see benefits for that for 20 to 30 years, because it takes a long time to mine this shit. Like for example, Quebec Hydro and Labrador, like that deal, that's been, and Newfoundland, like that's been a hard deal to fucking swing for years and years and years and years and years, right? It's been an issue for years. The sooner we do that, Labrador and Quebec and Newfoundland will benefit greatly as soon as they can put that to rest. What's our territory? What's your territory, right? It's disputed. Dropping trade barriers in Canada, and more to come. In like we've already dropped a lot of trade barriers from province to province. There's already an economic benefit to that, and more to come in June, right? So again, it's slow going. It'll take 2 to 4 years before you start to see the Canadian economy start to turn around, and probably about 10 years before it booms. But we also might see Carney actually, again, wishful thinking, but if he balances the Canadian budget in 10 years or in 4 years, that makes Canada not only a mid-power, but probably the strongest mid-power in the world, borderline superpower, because nobody else seems to have a balanced budget that I know of. I'm sure some countries say, oh no, our country has a balanced budget. I'd like to know if there is a country on the planet that has a balanced budget. The second you balance your budget, you have power. You have all the power you need. You can do anything from there. You still have to stay fiscally responsible, but you can divert your infrastructure into anything. And Carney is investing in Canadian infrastructure. Yes, he's using foreign investment to do this, which is always kind of a double-edged sword, whatever, I get that. But, diversifying so that you're not hooked on one major economy, which was Brian Mulroney brought that in. He was a conservative, right? And I do believe Brian Mulroney, again, not bashing him for it, but I do believe he just saw it as a no-brainer. John Turner, the Liberal opponent at the time, was like, no, he basically described exactly like having our economy completely linked to one economy gives that other economy, especially a bigger economy like the United States, too much control over ours. And this has been true. He was correct. But Brian Mulroney, I think in all innocence, was like, oh, no, the Americans would never betray us like that. But they did. Donald Trump betrayed his own base. You know what I mean? How much of his base is still loyal? I don't know. It can't be too much. But they're there. But it's the biggest betrayal that Donald Trump has done is the wins he's given to the radical left and to the globalists. Making, von der Leyen, or however you say her name, in the EU look reasonable. She's not. Making Macron look reasonable and a strongman of Europe. He's not. You know what I mean? Getting Carney elected by interfering with our elections. Fuck you. You know what I mean? It's just one thing after, and not even making good on America great. Like, where's all the factories, just coming back to the United States? Like, Donald Trump does not know how to do business. Real estate, sure. Business, no. Oh, what I'm going to do is put a tariff on everybody, so rather than telling people I'm going to tax them so we can keep the government going. I'll tariff everybody. The American people will pay it. And tariff is just a fancy word for tax, boomerang tax, I guess. Use that to pay off the deficit. Oh, it's not working. Why? Because we made $190 billion so far this year off the tariffs. Yeah, but we spent like $1 trillion every 3 months just to keep the government open. You know what I mean? And add on the wars and all that. Okay. I got elected to end all the wars. No, I'm going to start 3. I'm going to kidnap a world leader. Like you can't even fucking it's just crazy. And guys, like I say, we're not even through January yet. Like you know what I mean? The list goes on and on and on. But betraying his own people, like betraying the farmers. You know what I mean? Like U.S. farmers, one of the worst seasons they've ever had economically, just because of the Trump tariffs. Again, it's just, you know what I mean? And again, February is the month to be watching for. We're going to find out how bad the food shortages are going to be. At best, you get just really high food inflation. Again, because it's always there's a lag, right? Like our American food supply is going to run low, and if at best you just get really high food inflation. At worst, you're going to start to see Holodomor 2.0 in the United States. People starting, and I know many of my audience don't believe that'll ever happen. No, whatever. Because I mean, yes, some of the foreign aid food. Like if you see the Americans starting to cut foreign aid food to Africa, for example, there's your indicator that, okay, the reason why they're doing that is because they're running out. So put food away. Again, you don't have to go panic buy, but just understand the world like this. Wherever you are in the world, whatever's on shelf, no matter how expensive it is and how much the inflation goes up, if it's on the shelf, it's on sale. Things are not going to get cheaper, And yes, everybody is in the same problem. We're experiencing the same problem in Canada, but again, just not to the same degree. We're actually experiencing actual economic growth. It's a bouncing ball. Again, it's going to be 2 to 4 years before you see the Canadian GDP really shoot up. But we have to protect ourselves against the American hostilities, because our agriculture is going to get hit as the American one gets hit because, again, the intertwining of our economies. Like Canada can't. The only thing Canada can do is divert away from the United States. It can't really attack it economically, right? So without hurting ourselves, because if we attack many industries in Canada or American industries, it hurts the industries in Canada because the United States is like a tumor grafted onto a Canadian tumor. Our economies are tumors grafted onto each other. The difference is our economy is finding new trade. It's slow. It goes at the speed of smell. You have everybody out there always. Why can't this guy oppositioner is always like, why aren't you fixing this, fixing that? Like, okay, you know what? For Pierre Poilievre, he needs to change his messaging. Okay, pipeline ban and tanker ban is not going to win you the next election. I don't think another conservative can win again in Canada. Maybe provincially, but definitely not federally at this stage. You have to outplay Carney, and that's going to be a hard act to follow at this moment. Carney is now in probably the number 3 or number 4 spot for best prime minister of Canada. And again, that's not because I like the guy. Stephen Harper is the guy to beat overall, but Carney is gaining really fast, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If he outplays, brings down the deficit more than Paul Martin, who was a liberal, he does better. If he does better economic trade deals than Stephen Harper, we're fucking rocketing off to the moon. You know what I mean? It's just we have to fix every sector of the economy all at once. No easy fate for anybody. Justin Trudeau did fuck all other than destroy things, right? I think he's at Davos too. Why? I don't know. I hate that man. I hate him so much. He earned it. But I'm just being honest. Like, I don't go with the cheerleader stuff. You guys know that. It doesn't serve my audience. Like telling my audience what they don't want to hear is not nice, and I lose subscribers like that because people get butthurt very easily. I get that, but it also keeps them honest. And I notice over time my audience tends to thicken their skin a bit and say, "Okay, Reg, I disagree with you. We agree, disagree, or agree to disagree, but I can see what you're saying over here. I just don't agree with you over there yet." And then over time, it's usually like, yeah, you were fucking right. You know what I mean? Like 85% of the time I'm right. And that's not me ego, bravado. No, it's, look, we can fact check it. We can see where it led. Right. And it's because I try not to go partisan as much as possible. Yes, I'm on the right. I'm fiscally responsible on the right as much as possible. You can have any social program you want, but you have to have a way to pay for it. That's why I like the basic universal income. Every leftist out there, you ask them, how are you going to pay for it? Oh, we're going to tax the rich. And it never materializes. It can't, because it can't. It's not sustainable. You can't have half your population on welfare. Now, I don't know how much of the American population is on welfare, but probably close to half as well. So you got to get people back to work. You have to boom your small business. The problem is America focuses only mainly on, and Trump specifically, Trump is no friend to small business. He only panders to big corporations, right? Because it's easy pickings, it's easy win, but it has a lot of vulnerabilities. Canada's economy is more driven by small business, and I think that is the key to success, because it's the ultimate diversification is to have multiple businesses, right? Small businesses, and I think Carney needs to really start to focus more on that. Yes, do the international trade thing. I get that. But you better start, okay, well, in all fairness, okay, what do you think breaking down provincial barriers means, right? Yeah, that's helping small business. Okay, yes. Okay, so he's on it, but he needs to really focus on it. Why? Because no one's going to protect us more than ourselves. And that's same for every country. Look, any country can sustain itself if it has the right policies. It just might not become grandiose. It might not be as big. It might not. Living within your means means, okay, maybe you have to do some foreign trade, but okay, you have to use your natural resources wisely to make sure everybody's housed, fed, etc., etc. Like Greenland can't feed itself with a variety of foods without science and technology, right? Or just imports, right? But maybe investing in science and technology into greenhouse technology, that is the way people survive better in the Arctic going forward. So they get, some stuff. And we were starting to do that under Trudeau, believe it or not, in the Arctic, which I did agree with. Very few things I've agreed with the man on. But that's how we save the people in the Arctic. If we don't want them spending so much in food inflation, they have to be able to grow their own year round. And even if it's a supplement, it's better than not, right? Even if we have to do it at a slight taxpayer loss as a social program, okay, well, perhaps we can give up other stupid things, such as maybe gun grabs, and pay for food in the, a food supply chain in the Arctic. You know what I mean? Either or. What would you rather have? Thugs in jail or a gun grab? Would you rather have healthcare or a gun grab? Would you rather have food in the Arctic and stabilizing, using technology to stabilize energy in the Arctic, or a gun grab? Right? We'll see. We'll see. I mean, right now, like the pivot in Canada is, and it's not just Canada; it's European countries too. The ones that are less under focus are saying, well, we better start doing what Canada is doing, because if we don't, by the time the Americans come around to us, we won't be able to defend ourselves. Let's get out ahead of it. And this is the fuck Trump economy effect, right? Where people are just diverting their trade now before they're fully attacked, right? Just tell Trump what he wants to hear, and we'll work quietly on the sidelines for the mid powers to basically not, wean ourselves off these fucking superpowers that are just fucking insane, whether it's Russia, China, or the United States, right? Which will collapse the United States. It will. It'll eventually balance out, but like the United States is not going to be, in 10 years, it's no longer a superpower. It's maybe in 4 years it might, it'll be obvious in 4 or 5 years. As soon as, and again, I'm all for getting out of NATO, but if the United States wants to throw NORAD under the bus, the Nordic Alliance will cover the other end of that. And I know, like I say, when it comes to military stuff, Americans are very on their high horse with their military because it is the number one military in the world, right? But it's not undefeatable. It's not, which has been proven time and time again, that ragtag guys with rusted out AKs can beat you. You know what I mean? Yes, Israel always pulls off these amazing strikes on Iran and neighboring nations because they got 6 months to plan it, right? And there's no retaliation usually, right? But to fight a prolonged war, the Israelis can't even last 12 days. They have to throw in the fucking hat. You know what I mean? The Americans are going to be the same. They might last 120 days. Then they're going to have to throw it in a hat once they come up with a foe that is willing to fight back. Greenland is saying they're willing to fight back. Maybe they won't. But I think the Greenlandic people in Denmark would be willing to fight to the death for their own territory. You can't dismiss that. Once you have Sun Tzu's Art of War, once you have a nation that has the ability and willingness to fight, they can't be defeated. Ukraine is losing in the Ukraine. There's no doubt about that. But this is year 4 of them having the ability to still fight with little to no help, really, when you think about it, what they're up against. And they're up against the number 2 military in the world, and they're holding them off. Now put 8 modern advanced militaries, even if they're not fully as advanced as the United States, but put those militaries up against the United States. The United States can't win against the 8 of us. They can't. Not in the Arctic anyway. It doesn't mean those 8 countries are going to be able to invade the United States successfully. Again, the shoe goes on the other foot. When whatever. But I know the United States will not survive. Americans will lose over 200 to 250 million Americans if it goes toe-to-toe with about 40 to 45 countries, which it's about to go toe-to-toe. If it go NATO is 28 countries to 29 countries, right? And again, will Turkey actually make good on it? I don't know. It doesn't mean they'll all join in. But it does look like the prominent countries will join in. France is a big player here. France is a nuclear power. France is a big, powerful military, even if it's got problems. Every Western military got problems. The UK is probably more powerful than France. Germany is probably in the number 2 or number 3 of Europe, right? For technological advancements, whatever. The UK joined on with Europe and France. The United States would be completely barricaded around the world. Factor in Canada, yeah, good luck. I mean, the German Navy is pretty big. The Kriegsmarine is still pretty big. It's about the same size of ours, maybe a little bit bigger. But now, the United States no longer has that 10-to-1 advantage, right? The French Navy, again, it has aircraft carriers. The British have aircraft carriers, sure, whatever. It's again, the British have F-35s. The Rafale jet is not. It's probably the number 2 most exported jet on the planet, next to the Gripen, followed by maybe the Eurofighter, whatever. Then maybe the MiG-29s, or now the Su-30s or whatever. The naval power alone will overdo the U.S. military. Naval power alone. Again, it doesn't mean the other navies don't all go to the bottom as well. I think pretty much it'll be a handful of NATO, navies left after the United States Navy is wiped out. Maybe there's like 2 Canadian frigates left, and maybe 1 Swedish, one whatever, 1 Danish one, whatever. But that'll be bigger than what the U.S. Navy has. And then once the aircraft carriers are gone, the U.S. submarines, you won't be able to, they won't be able to defend the U.S. Virginia class against, basically, like I say, the Auroras and stuff like that. So P-3 Orions or whatever, just the sub hunters will get them because you won't have the ability to project power over the ocean without an aircraft carrier, right? So, yeah. And all it takes is 12 well-placed torpedoes, and you have no more aircraft carriers. Once those aircraft carriers are gone, those warships are just, okay, you know, send in the flights. You know what I mean? You just won't be able to keep enough of a presence of Air Force above these aircraft or above these warships to keep them protected. Because the aircraft don't have to go toe to toe with each other. They just have to fire cruise missiles until you eventually burn up all the defense systems of the warships, and then after that, it's just drones. Just kamikaze drones coming in. Japanese World War II. Only every little Canadian. We got these little Navy drones that we have. Start mass producing those. Those things can drop like little Sea Spider torpedoes. Okay, maybe shoot down 50, 100 cheap drones, but these drones get a a Sea Spider, these new Sea Spiders, or a Mark 46 or a Mark 48, 54 torpedo, or we scale the drone up and you got two Mark 48s coming at you. Or the dreaded F-21 torpedo from the French. Again, it's just gonna be like I could see like British and French warships just, okay, there's the carrier group, just unload your torpedoes at a safe distance, and if whatever, go, and then the next one goes, the next one goes, the next one goes, and the torpedoes go back and forth, but eventually the warships are going to run out of torpedoes, right? And that's the idea. Just keep sending stuff. Get them to use up all their torpedoes and take out the supply ship first. You know what I mean? If you get them with drones, again, the warships are just going to get fucking hammered. And it's all warships. Drones are going to be the number one thing. Maybe every Navy warship gets taken out. It depends on how you fight, right? But anyway, that's what I'm saying. This is what the Canadian military seems to be signaling that they're getting ready for. The Danish military, the Swedes, the Germans, the French. Macron is really out there heavy-handed, saying, like, hands off. So there's clearly behind, and you have, again, U.S. commanders, generals in the Netherlands, basically politically correctly telling Trump, no, NATO strong, kind of like Trump, fuck off. So this guy is probably, if he does the right thing, will say, okay, I hate to do this, but this is how he either steps down or this is how you beat the U.S. Navy. Again, you never know. You never know. So what I'm saying is, behind closed doors, all these Trump cheerleaders need to understand that while you're going, yeah, fuck yeah, we're sticking it to the libs, we're sticking it to the World Economic Forum. You're not, number one. You're not going after the banking system. Clearly that's not happening. There's no politician out there going after the corrupt banking system, right? But what I'm telling you is that militaries around the world are planning on how to defend against the United States. Right now, it's probably just talks in hypotheticals. But the idea that you are seeing solidarity moves of boots on the ground in Greenland, it's not the amount of people that are there. It means if you're seeing boots on the ground in solidarity, that means they're mobilizing behind with rocket trucks, torpedoes, submarines, warships. How do we take out the U.S. Navy? Drones. How do we overwhelm the U.S. Navy in the Arctic? Well, drones is probably, and cruise missiles and anti-shipping missiles is probably going to be it. Now, that said, the only question is, will Trump hit that red button and get a whole bunch of U.S. sailors killed? The second you lose all the carrier groups, okay, particularly the aircraft carriers, the warships are sitting ducks, right? Warships are sitting ducks. And you don't, even with the size of the U.S. Air Force, it will not be able to defend against, like, if you had like British Eurofighter Typhoons coming across the ocean, right? Drop tanks, they got 4 missiles, that's it. Okay, there's the escort, the air escort of F-35s protecting the warships. Fire 2 missiles, maybe get lucky with 1. Okay, they're coming at us. Okay, we'll just go back. This is the old Soviet tactic. Basically, you go and you agitate, okay? You don't take them on, you just agitate. Eventually, you get a couple of hits. I'm not saying they won't get hit the other way, but what I'm saying is eventually, like, for example, if a Eurofighter Typhoon with long-range tanks fired one of those freaking Astra missiles, or not Astra, but the Swedes have them too.
These things can kill aircraft up to 200 kilometers away, is what I'm saying. The Meteor missile. They take out one tanker. One tanker, okay? Suddenly you have, with all the aircraft carriers destroyed, and God knows how many warships, okay? You take out one tanker. Every F-16 is not going to make it back to home base, right? You just wait them out. You know what I mean? So yeah, well, we'll get your tankers and stuff like that. Yeah, but the cost to do that is the sit and wait approach, right? It's like, let them come to us. So if you're smart and the U.S. warships are within the 400 kilometer range of the Taurus missile system, you use your Eurofighters to draw the F-35s and F-16s and F-15s and all that, you know, in 200 kilometers in, and then what you do is you turn your Eurofighters, you paint everything, you know, from 200 kilometers away, and then you turn on the Taurus missile systems, and then good luck trying to get away from those. You know, like, what do you hide behind out over the ocean? Nothing. At that point, it's countermeasures, right? So you're going to lose aircraft that way. Like, I mean, there's so many ways to do it. And every time you lose an aircraft, now they can counter. You know what I mean? It's you got to think about how this would play out. It's never just we charge in and that's it. The Maduro raid was allowed to happen. I can't stress that enough. It's not the win Trump is making it out to be. Again, for all we know, Maduro was in on it. But I'm sure the next time they go back, the air defense systems will be ready for it. You know, I mean, the electronic warfare angle will be ready for it. You know what I mean? Look, the Russians are going to get weapons into Venezuela one way or the other. They're going to get them into Cuba one way or the other. And counter warfare, electronic warfare, will be a very priority target. The Chinese are already moving stuff into Iran. God knows what they're bringing in. They're bringing in like heavy lift stuff. That's probably electronic warfare and air defense systems. That's best guess. We'll never know, right? So, yeah, Trump is leading us into the worst disaster ever. Anyway, there we go.